How's it going, everybody? It's your boy Davey on everything, and welcome back to the podcast. We have a very special episode today. Obviously, our friend Dev is here always. He just never leaves. He sticks around. But we have a very special guest here and a friend of ours, a new friend of ours. This is our friend Andre Galactic. You can check him out on various platforms, which we will plug at some point in this video. So you're going to have to stay to the end if you want to find out where you can find him. Okay, so a little backstory here. I have an ad up on Kijiji. Looking for, just unique people, cool people that are honestly just anybody that's kind of willing to come on and tell their story, or if they have a specific topic that they want to talk about. And our friend Andre here, he responded to the ad and hit me up on Twitter, and he told me some pretty cool stuff that he's been through in his life and some experiences that he's had, and very interested in talking to him about it. So here we are. He came all the way from basically Toronto, if you don't know. I won't get too specific, but he came all the way from Toronto to come see us, so we're very grateful for that. And we're just going to kind of talk to him about his life and a few of his experiences and have a good conversation, so stay tuned. And I don't want the world to see me, 'cause I don't think that they'd understand. When everything's made to be broken, I just want you to know. Okay, so Andre, why don't you tell us a little bit about your maybe earlier life, as far as like you grew up in Canada, obviously, or
well, sort of.
Okay.
Like how early? You mean like in the womb or?
Okay.
Where were you conceived?
Like teenage years forward. Like how did that go?
I was conceived actually in Yugoslavia, where my mother met my father while traveling, or they're both from communist countries. They went down. My mom went for vacation, met my dad. He worked at a hotel.
Okay.
And then I was born in Prague, and I grew up there for 5 years.
Cool.
Or no, originally there, and I went to Yugoslavia, and then from when I was 5, I moved to Canada, and then I've been going U.S. and States and Canada back and forth since then.
Ever since. Okay, cool. Yeah. So I know you were saying that at some point you kind of just like sold a bunch of your shit, packed a car, and just kind of went off, and you almost kind of just did that for a long time. So what made you want to just kind of go off into the world and see the world? Like, what was the thing that kind of triggered that event?
Well, it was a lot of things, but the main thing I think was, well, I spent a lot of time in the Toronto area, and I had a lot of friends that did my things in life. My dad died when I was 18.
Okay.
And that started a journey of self-discovery in myself. Started a lot with personal development, right. A lot of like what it means to be a man or what it means to be a human in general. Yep. But then as I went on, as I was going, I was noticing it was boring as shit here.
Yeah, that's a good, very observant. Yep.
And as I figured out what do I want to do, Basically, I haven't really worked, say, a full-time job since like 2005.
Wow, okay.
And I just didn't want to live the rat race. When I was 18, also the same year when my dad died, I watched a movie that really changed my life.
Which was what?
Fight Club.
Oh, okay. Yes, great film.
It's dark as shit, but
yes.
It had one line that really stuck with me. When Tyler Durden or Brad Pitt turns to Ed Norton, he goes, who doesn't have a name, but he goes, oh shit, like Ed Norton is talking about how he had all this stuff and his apartment was perfect and everything, and all blew up and it's all gone. And then Brad Pitt's like, well shit, man, all that stuff's gone. He's like, the things you own end up owning you. Ah. That line stuck with me. Yeah. And later on, actually, I had a chance to work with Ed Norton on a film in 2006 or so. I worked on The Incredible Hulk.
Oh, cool.
With him.
Yep.
I was one of the ex-background people with him, and I chatted with him, and I thanked him for that movie because that movie like changed the trajectory of my life.
Right.
And that was a tripping thing in itself.
Yeah,
but that line kind of changed everything and made me think, well, why do I have to keep accumulating shit for no purpose just to get to this goal in the future that is going to be proving to the whole world or proving to other people how valuable I am. Yep. To collect shit, I don't want to be a consumer. I don't want to be a slave. Yep. So that changed the whole trajectory, and I said, you know what? I can't live this way. Even then, I stayed for a little while, but eventually, I just packed all my shit and decided to go because I felt like living here. I felt like a walking wallet.
Right.
Like everything is extorting money from you. Like one point, I got some tickets, 1 or 2 tickets while driving. Yep. And I went to the courthouse to go and fight them. And I get there, and there's like, it looked like a bank. There was like 10 rows of tellers, and people were going in, and everybody was just paying their money. It literally, people were behind a glass thing, and there was like a slip for paying money. And I'm like, this is a fucking bank.
Yeah.
I'm like,
yeah.
Everything's extorting money from me everywhere I go. Every single thing I do, it want money from me from everything. Either from driving, and I'm doing this, and doing that. And like, how do I live this way? I can't live this way.
Sure.
And I decided to leave. And I said, screw it. At that point, I already did a couple of road trips. I've driven across Canada 8 times.
That's crazy.
To the point where it became no problem. Like it was done like that.
Yep.
And every time I went, I had amazing journeys with people, awesome people I met, and we would share music, have chats, and I had epic experiences every time.
Right.
But the first time, my buddy said to me, he's like, hey man, I sold my car in Nova Scotia. He had bought a car. He got a car in a trade.
Okay.
I used to be an auto mechanic as well when I first in the auto, and then I got into like IT.
Okay.
And then I got into film, and then on the audio music. Also, I was a DJ, and I got into audio. I got into audio engineering and music production, and then I got tired of that. So then I went into film, and then from film I went into I ran a wedding videography company, and I got rid of that, and then I basically decided to go travel the world. So.
How did you tell did you have any family or friends, and when you said you're just like dropping everything, like how did they react to your mom? You said because your mom's here, like did they react differently, or did they have a...
Yeah, well, that's the kind of friction I've had kind of for a long time, is that I live a very different way than most people understand. Most people understand be born, learn shit, go to school, find a wife, get a mortgage, pay for shit, die.
Yeah.
And I was like, fuck that. That's not life. That's not life to me.
I think a lot of people would like to do something like what you did, just strike out and go and do this wild adventure, but they have that friction with family, right? And they're like, all right, well, my mom is guilt tripping me, or this or that. That's probably the hardest part to get over, no? It's just like, how do you avoid that disappointment from your loved ones, you know?
I mostly just didn't give a shit.
Yeah, that's the only way you can really approach it, right?
No, I didn't, but I didn't. You see, like I said, my dad died, so my mom was on her own. She decided not to go with find another partner, because she was really still very loyal to my dad.
Yep.
And what I did is I had other families, so I asked them to help her out and take care of her while I was away. Yep. I wasn't planning to be away for like shit tons of time. I was just planning to be like a short period. Well, after that trip to Nova Scotia, I got the fucking travel bug, because like he was like, yo, I'm going to Nova Scotia, so I need to go to Nova Scotia, sell my car. Somebody bought it there. Do you want to drive your car with me, follow me, I'll pay for your gas. Mm-hmm. It won't cost you anything. You just got to pay for your own food. So we got another buddy. We just traveled to Nova Scotia in like 24 hours. We just hopped in the car and went. I'm like, fuck it. Why not? I had nothing else to do.
Yeah, that's cool.
So we went. We get to Nova Scotia. I get to the Atlantic Ocean for the first time. I'm like, this is awesome.
Yeah.
And since then, I was like, and then I did another road trip. I found 2 other buddies, and I'm like, hey, man, we need to go to the West Coast. So we just hopped in the car. My friend was off work. He had 2 weeks off for a plant shutdown. He was working some shit, like shipping and receiving job. So we got off, and I pushed for the event. We got in the car, and we just drove. In 40 hours, we were in Calgary.
Wow. Okay.
So we're like, screw it. And then I just kept going. And I'm like, then I wanted to live, and I discovered I loved Banff. Banff is the most beautiful place probably in the world.
Right.
And I wanted to live there. And at this point, I was doing wedding videography and photography. So I was like, fuck it. I'm just going to go to Banff and do wedding photos and shit. And I got there, and I found some gigs. But then as I found out, there's other thing happening in the background. But let's basically say I decided we went a cross-country road trip, and somehow I ended up in East Hastings in Vancouver.
Okay.
Which we didn't know idea about. This is in 2008. This is literally just before the Vancouver Olympics happened.
Yep.
What I learned later on is they took all the homeless people and they pushed them all into East Hastings.
Yeah.
And we literally just showed up there on the way. We didn't know anything about it. We're just these 3 stupid ass kids from Toronto. We get there and we're like, holy fuck.
Yeah, that's a different world, eh?
People doing crack and heroin on the street, and we're like, because I've seen it in like the US. I've seen it in, not physically at the time, but Skid Row in LA and shit.
Yep.
But when I actually saw it, we also had a video camera and we were videoing it, which is a mistake because people got fucking pissed.
They don't like it. Yeah, they don't like to be once that camera comes out, right?
Oh man, we got like accosted and yelled at, and like we were told, don't come out here at night. And we're like, okay, fuck that. Why would I come here at night?
Yeah, it's not the place to be. So what age? I'm just gonna take a step back here.
Yeah.
How old were you when did you decide, like the Nova Scotia trip? How old were you been at that time?
I can't remember. Maybe 24, 25.
Okay. And sorry, how old are you now?
How old do
You
you
don't
think
mind
I am?
asking? I don't know, like early 30s maybe. I don't know.
I'm older than that, but I was just.
Okay.
38?
I seem much younger than I am.
Yeah.
Because I live a life of like chilling.
Yeah.
About that.
You definitely have a youthful.
You
You definitely have a youthful.
You don't
spirit.
have any stress, because stress causes you to age more. It seems like you're living
Yeah,
stress-free.
fuck that. I live stress free, yeah, for sure.
Okay, so when you contacted me on Twitter, you sent me about almost 4 minutes of voice notes, and that goes a long way on voice notes. You've told me, a whole variety of really cool experiences that you've had over the last 10 plus years, right?
13 years, yeah.
13 years. And a few of them really kind of caught my attention more so than anything. And the first thing, if you don't mind talking about one specific thing, you kind of started off with telling me that you were in a sex cult.
Yeah.
If you could explain that story, because people would love to hear that, and I would love to hear that story. It's definitely like that's an experience that probably a very small percentage of people experience, right? Something like a sex cult. Was it a religious-based cult, or was it strictly about sex? Like, what's the story there?
So it's interesting. So I joined this sex cult. And you think, oh my God, that sounds amazing. But the problem is that like 95% of sex cults are exactly what you don't want.
But what is...
See, it's always a dude. It's always a dude who's running the shit.
Yeah.
And it's like a monkey love situation going on where he gets everything.
Yeah.
And if you're there, you're just going to be the beta male and you get jack shit. You're just watching him fuck these chicks.
So is it like...
Wait, so that's the problem. You don't want that.
No, you
That's
don't
all
want
good.
that.
That's
That
no
sounds
bueno.
terrible.
But what's a... Sorry, so when you say cult, I'm thinking like people that believe in an ideology that's very different than what other people like live their day by. So is this, or when you say sex cult, just like a freaky group of people that fucks? Like, what do you mean by cult?
So this is where it gets interesting. So like again, you don't want a male run, a dude run one, right? So just so everybody knows, the sweet spot is the female run cults. So this is a female run cult, right?
Okay.
And basically what I was a stroker.
Okay. What's a stroker? You have to explain
So
it.
it's not golf.
Okay. I figured it didn't have anything to do with the golf. Yeah.
Well, you can imagine. Basically, it's about women's orgasms.
Sure.
So this cult is, you can lose the definition of a cult, whatever it means. Like cult means culture, essentially. It's like a subtext of culture.
Yeah.
A culture is a group of people who live a certain way, and do certain things. Actually, even Christianity was considered a cult for a long time.
Sure.
They were called the Jesus cult for a long time. There's actually a period of time between 0, when Christ's birth, and 300 AD or so when Christianity was formed, that they were just considered actually the Jesus cult. People were kind of weirdly struck by them at the time, because it was all like Roman Empire shit at the time.
Yep.
Like Roman mythology. Anyway, so this is a woman-run cult, and the reason it's kind of a cult is because everybody all does the same thing, and they all have a certain way of doing things. They have a certain terminology, and it's expensive as fuck.
Yeah. That's usually another factor in it. Right?
I got into it because I was with this woman that was a head chef for it.
Okay.
So it's like this whole thing where I ended up getting in California, and basically ended up being with this girl that was chefing for these cult gatherings.
This cult was like in California?
Oh, it's all over.
No,
it's called One Taste.
Where were you?
One Taste.
Where were you doing this?
California.
So you were in California.
Yeah.
So there's just like thousands of members across.
Oh yeah.
Internationally.
Oh,
okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
So it's like there's one woman leading it, and it's ecstasy through orgasm for women. It's basically it's for a woman to get into spiritual states of arousal through being stroked.
Okay.
You
Yeah,
wanna be
that's the
specific?
basis of it.
Yeah. So basically, men are kind of like the worker drones where
Right.
they
And then there's a queen bee.
yeah, there's a queen bee, but there's also many women who are like paying to get into these situations. Usually either they come in with a partner or they are doing their own thing, but they get stroked, and it's about reaching like ecstasy and like spiritual attainment through orgasm. So
Okay.
you get these men who come in and take turns going around in different ways and giving stroking, and then they achieve arousal or through ecstasy through this. But then there's also like pods of groups that meet up, and there's like a subsective community of stuff. So it's a lot of sex within a lot of areas.
Yeah.
But like, it sounds kind of strange, and it sounds like how the hell this exists, but
Yeah.
it's expensive as hell.
Yeah.
Like these women, like my friend was, or my this girl I was with was getting paid a shit ton of money to be a chef to these private events. They were in the Beverly Hills mansions. People were paying $15,000 a week to go
Wild.
to these events. And it's like they all lived in this mansion, so it was like 20 people paying $15,000 each. It's like imagine
Wow.
it's like what, 300 grand
Yeah.
to be in a week in a mansion
Crazy.
to get these things. And like big names would go to these things, like Reverend Michael Beckwith and big names would go and talk at these events. So
Sure.
they were like expensive, lavish events.
Yeah.
And then I got free, because I know her, I got free entrance into this. And then it worked into these pods of people where it was just there. I was like, my job was to just like
Get people off. Get women
bang
off.
the girls into submission, into like ecstasy.
Was it a one-way street with that? Like you weren't, or I guess if you're fucking them, you're also finishing too. But the goal wasn't to have you orgasm; it was to have them orgasm.
Yeah, but you can't stop yourself from
Yeah, no, if you yeah, exactly. But so was it always like? Was every encounter you had with them, was it full-on sex, or some of them was just sometimes it was just focused on her, like she was getting off?
The events and the workshops were, but the breakout groups were not. Breakout
Okay.
groups just ended up being orgies.
Oh, cool. Okay, that's way better. I would join too. That's wild, man. So
I just kind of fell into it. I didn't really wasn't planning to. I just kind of she was doing it, and I'm like, I got invited. I got free passes, and I'm like, or free workshops, and I was
Yeah.
like, okay, well, why not try it?
Did they have they had like a doctor in that kind of? They would teach everyone.
Yeah, but see, the beautiful thing about me is though, like, I'm a very independent thinker.
Yeah.
I've been into a lot of situations where I could kind of cultish kind of situations, and this is the thing I've had with my mom. The issue that I had with my mother is that she was terrified I'd be joining something that was gonna freak her out.
Yeah.
But what she doesn't know about me is I've never succumbed to peer pressure.
Sure.
Like, many times, like I told you earlier, I don't smoke weed.
Yep.
There's many times when I was a teenager, my friends tried to get me to smoke weed thousands of times, literally thousands of times.
Yeah.
And I just was grossed out by cigarettes to the point where I just didn't want to, no matter what.
Yep.
And there's points where I would drink and I would get drunk, but then my friends would try to get me to smoke after I got drunk. They're like, "Oh, he's drunk as fuck now. Let's see if I can get him to smoke."
Yeah.
Never did.
Okay.
I think people, when they drink, they gives them an excuse to do the things that they really would like to do, but they can't. So they use this guise of "Oh, I was just drunk."
Yeah.
And I did it, but not always. Sometimes, right?
Yeah, they can use it as a crutch, for bad decisions
I
or
agree.
choices or whatever.
So I never did. So I have my own independent thoughts, and I always did, and I was not gonna get swayed by this cult.
Yeah, it sounds like you weren't really lost or looking for anything specifically. You just kind of fell into it and you went with it, right?
Yeah.
Like a lot of those people are probably lost in life, looking for some kind of direction, some kind of guidance, some kind of spirituality. It seems like you weren't. That wasn't you. You were just.
I already had my thing. I
Yeah.
found spirituality in that way much earlier. I already had way before I even left Toronto. I already had a thing, the overarching thing that I found that really made sense to me. So
Okay.
I wasn't seeking. I was just
This
just
is fun.
experience what the cornucopia of life has.
Yeah, exactly.
I already know what I am or who I am. I think at least I thought I did, but it always expands, right?
Sure,
It's not
absolutely.
I knew at that moment everything, but I was already I got my shit. I'm just gonna keep going and see what life has to offer. My main focus, my main goal essentially was I want to serve and give and help.
Yep.
I was been gifted this, whoever you want to call it, God, universe, whatever it is, has given me a shit ton of skills and abilities in shit ton of ways that I have. I'm so gifted in so many things that I can do, and freedom and ways I see the world, and the freedom I can give to the world.
Yep.
On my message, and I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna go out there and help people. That's literally what I've done for the last 13 years.
Yeah, it's very noble. I mean,
Well, there's some also. It's not.
yeah. I mean, obviously you're doing it for yourself as well, but I mean, your intention.
I get a lot of joy from it, but also there is a level of it's not completely altruistic because I also get off on it.
Yeah.
To be honest, I'm big on accountability and honesty.
Yep.
And transparency. And the thing is, I've been doing a lot of self-awareness, and like I get off a little bit. Like I have my own thing for it because I love helping people because I for the pure joy of it, but I also and assisting, but also I get off on the fact that I can do it. I get excited about like being the person that does it for somebody else.
Right. I mean, I think if it wasn't like that, you wouldn't. I think that's probably like most people that want to help. They also do get satisfaction out of helping, right?
Yeah.
Like it's not if you didn't get some sort of personal satisfaction from helping people, you wouldn't help people, right?
Yeah.
I think that's probably true for most people. I mean, there are obviously some people that are just like purely I mean, I don't know. Humans are humans, right? So, how long were you in the sex cult? Like, how long did you participate?
3 months.
And
I lived in California for 6 months.
Okay.
Time so.
And if you were when it was your time to exit, did you get any kind of grief from members or leadership, or you were just able to freely kind of walk?
It wasn't the traditional. That's what's a loose definition of a cult.
Sure.
People kind of like pressure you to stay in.
Yeah.
It wasn't quite like Scientology or something.
Yeah.
Which is I heard some horrible stories.
Absolutely.
But like, there are some people who are kind of like try to like brainwash you into thinking that this is like your only source or whatever. I was like, no, fuck that, screw it. I basically had to come back here. It was Christmas was happening, and I wanted to spend it with my mom. I have this thing where like Christmas comes no matter what I do.
Yep.
I have to go see my mom.
Sure.
And family. So I was like, regardless of what these people want me to do, I'm just gonna go anyway.
Yeah.
But there was pressure for sure.
Absolutely. Like, yeah. I mean, it's usually kind of how it goes with those kind of. They depend on membership, right? So they're trying to keep everybody.
Well, they want to legitimize what they're doing in a way, and they need members. Like, I actually had this in India. I was in India for a bit, and I actually got tried. This guy tried to recruit me for his whatever the fuck is happening to him. Literally, I'm walking along the Ganges, which is like the holy Ganges, is like in India.
Yeah.
That it's very polluted.
It is there.
Yeah.
But like literally, I went to this thing. This is a different story, but basically, this guy was in his tent on the Ganges, and I'm walking along, and this guy was like, "Hey, come in here." I'm like, "Whatever, okay, I'll check." I go inside this tent. There's a guy in there. There's like 3 guys in there, Indian guys. One guy is wearing like just like a diaper.
Oh yeah.
Another guy is like wearing normal clothes. He's like, "Oh, he would like you to like help him. Like, would you like to be a part of this?" And I was like, "Part of what?" And he's like, "Well, you can come and you can like, help him and clean him and bring food for him." And I'm like, doesn't sound like a great deal.
No, that's just charity. That's just a charity.
And I'm like, he's like, you can serve him and stuff. I'm like, why would I do that? He's like, he's a bit older than me. And I'm like,
yeah. What wisdom does this man have that's worth me doing this,
Yeah, just because he's like naked in a tent doesn't mean
that's right.
I'm gonna do this.
Yeah, that's his selling feature, right?
I'm like, nah, I'm cool, man.
Yeah.
And then after he found out that I wasn't interested, the guru guy, whoever he was, he's like, man, he just like loses interest in me completely. And he's like, okay. And he goes in his bag and he pulls out a smartphone. He's always on his smartphone. And he's like going through it, and he's like literally he's wearing like a diaper, like he's just like wearing a cloth, and he's on a smartphone, like screw this guy. He's literally living here. And later, what I found out is over there, if you're a guru, you get clout the more subjects you have.
Gotcha.
If you get a white guy, you're fucking set.
Okay.
Over there, because like the mindset over there is because they have this thing with white people in India. Not to be anything, but like literally, I would, as a no-namer traveling through India, I would have piles of people, like 10, 20 people, like stopping me and like trying to get selfies with me for no reason other than just like I'm a tall white guy.
Yeah.
Also, I look different, imagine. But one time I had this guy stop me and ask me for a selfie. And then another person saw that and like, this guy must be somebody.
Oh no, it starts a chain reaction.
Yeah, I had a lineup of like 10 people, 10, 15 people.
Oh my God.
I was at this Buddha statue. It was like a 115-foot Buddha, the tallest Buddha statue in the world.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden I have a lineup of people trying to get selfies with me. And I'm like, what the hell is this shit?
Yeah.
Anyway, so if you can get a white guy to be like one of your followers, that gives you major clout over there.
Sure.
Because that's all of a sudden it's like, holy shit, they got like a white dude
from
wherever.
Hey, did you hear Barbinder got a white guy in his clan? Oh man. Yeah, that's wild, man. That's crazy. So you didn't join his cult?
No.
So you were staying with the One Taste. As One Taste, I don't know, like that whole concept sounds super familiar, and I'm sure there's other organizations that have done something very similar, but I swear I watched some sort of documentary about something that sounded very much like what you were talking about. I'm sure that's a kind of a grift that has been done more than once, though, right?
Oh yeah,
For sure.
they have the best tagline ever. It's like, just like the ocean, one taste is like something is.
Just some cheesy ass
It's the
bag.
most. I can't remember what it is. I read it so long ago, but like, it was just so cheesy when I read it. I was like, this is the saddest shit I've ever seen.
And they're still in operation to this
Oh, yeah.
day. Yeah, that's
And
crazy.
they're headquartered in California.
Oh yeah, yeah.
That's
But the
funny.
thing is, they got major clout over there. The thing is, that a cult is a cult only until it gets enough members and it stands the test of time where it becomes a religion.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
No, that's kind of how I've always looked at it too, right? You get to a certain point of legitimacy, right, where people are like, all right, well, it's not like Jonestown or some, there's usually if there's aliens involved too, it's never really gonna surpass cult status, I find. But
Yeah.
that's usually kind of how it goes. If
Well-
you put the time in and you get the membership, you could eventually become a legitimate religion, right?
There was a point where I had opportunity / thought about starting my own.
Oh
But-
yeah, really.
Well, like it's kind of strange, but I was doing mushroom ceremonies in Hawaii,
cool.
and I've done about at this point I think 3 or so, and I was holding the ceremony of a group. It was like I think about 8 of us on a fire in Hawaii, and I was doing this mushroom ceremony.
Yep.
And during this thing, I took some as well because you got to be in. You can't take as much as everybody else, but you hold in the space, so it's a little different.
Yep.
So you take a little bit just to keep in the same vibration as everybody else.
Yep.
And as I was doing this, I think I took a bit too much because I didn't have a choice or ability to get like the dried mushrooms. So
Yep.
I got like mushroom chocolates.
Okay.
Everybody took full ones, but I took half ones. But these things were potent.
Right.
as shit. So I took a certain amount, and I'm like holding the space. But then now I started getting these musings. And I'm like, oh shit. And then it got me really. How do I say it? I got really horny.
Okay. Okay.
And I started it started playing the tricks in my mind of like, is this like, also you're in Hawaii,
Yeah.
and the Hawaiian Islands is like there's a lot of lava and a lot of fertility and a lot of life. Like everything grows so ridiculously. Like I had a bike I put into leaned against the tree, and I came back to it like 2 days later, and it already had vines growing on it or around it. Like it was
Okay.
already disappearing. Like the jungle is fertile as fuck.
Right.
So something about, have you guys done mushrooms?
Mm-hmm. Got some upstairs. Yep.
There's that like feeling of like connection and seeing through shit
Yeah.
where like on Hawaii is a different level of it. And I started getting musings of like, these people are really, I wanted to have sex with everybody.
Yeah.
Essentially. And I was like, I can start something here. Like I can like, I was like looking, my brain was playing such tricks on me and like looking for signs that they really wanted to do that. Like I started like looking and seeing like, if she looks and holds this and looks this way, that means she really wants to.
She's
She wants to fuck.
She's in.
And I was like just fighting myself like,
If she says hi, she wants to fuck.
Yeah, that's awesome.
something like that.
So when you came out of that experience, when you came out of the mushroom trip, was that something that was still in your mind? Like, I can do this. Like this, I can make something from this.
Yeah, man. There's like, consciousness is such a weird thing. It's like, okay, I can convince myself of anything. And at the moment I was like, people really, how do I even explain this? It's like, I've always had this feeling like whatever I want to do, I can do it.
Yeah.
Just go for it.
Right.
And if it doesn't work, it wasn't meant to work.
Sure.
But doesn't mean I didn't go for it.
Yeah.
Anyway, so at that point I was like, on the mushrooms, it was just like this level of, I can just do this, nothing's stopping me. And afterwards, instead, I didn't. I ended up like, I was like, the whole time I was just like fighting myself of this, like, should I, shouldn't I, should I, shouldn't I, should I, shouldn't I?
Yeah.
And I didn't. But like, I feel like I could have. And
Yeah.
like went down this timeline of being like a sex cult guru
Yeah.
if I wanted to.
Yeah.
But like,
I mean, you had the experience. You've already been partook.
this is actually before that though.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Is that why you were so open to also joining the One Taste? Like you were like, oh, I already thought about doing this myself. I might as well jump in.
Sort of. I just fall into things.
Yeah.
Just try things and never know what happens.
So where are you at right now? Are you
The sex cult?
no. Like, yeah, so are you continuing your adventure? Are you taking it slow right now, or?
It's a new phase. I'm like thinking, what am I gonna do at this point? And part of that is writing a book, and that's something.
It's something I want to talk about as well. Actually.
Yeah, actually, I'm writing a couple books. I realized recently in the last year, I think I'm pretty sure I have ADHD.
Okay.
Whatever that means. Not diagnosed, but like, I think it's exacerbated. I think social media has really actually like
Made it worse.
I don't know about you guys. How do you guys feel about social media? I feel like it's either made it worse or like activated it in some way.
Yeah, I think with me, I mean, I'm like, social media is more just a tool, a means to the end. Like, if I want to do this, I have to do that. But I also find myself getting stuck in these doom scrolls where I'm like, the fuck am I doing type of thing, right? And it mentally, it definitely isn't something that's like good for me. I can feel that. Like, I feel like I'm rotting when I'm on social media. You know, I'm sitting there like stop. What the fuck am I doing? Put it down. And then minutes later, I'm like, oh, I should check my YouTube analytics, TikTok. You know what I mean? Like, for me, it's like.
See, that's interesting because if you do mushrooms, you want nothing to do with your
No, you don't.
No, that's very true. That's very true. I don't even think about my phone.
Look at it.
No.
I don't even want to look at it. I feel like, and I almost feel like it's giving me some, if I'm on that, I feel like I'm almost getting like a bad juju energy from it. You know what I mean? I'm staring at it like that. There's nothing that's enticing me about it, my phone, which is good. And I wish I could live that full time, but I mean, I'm trying to do this, and this involves social media. So
yeah, it's kind of like, how would you call it? Like means to an end, but like
a necessary evil, honestly. Like, think about this,
sort of.
If I had like $5-6 million and I still wanted to do this because it's something that I enjoy, I wouldn't even worry about the social media part. I would just do this. But I'm poor. I'm not poor, but I'm not rich. And if I want to do this, I have to also try and make money with this. Inevitably, got to make money from this. So I'm like, I need the social media, but I don't want to do the social media. It's like this stupid, convoluted thing where I'm like, I'm here. This is what I'm doing.
See, I don't do that. Like, for me personally, I'm not just on my phone all the time. I'm more into just talking to people, and I think I get lost with like just chatting and being a social butterfly. But the only thing I use it for is literally to upload, and then I just like turn it off.
Well,
that's the best way to go, though.
No, for sure. But what I try to do is I go on TikTok and I'll like all the unliked posts, and then hopefully they check out my profile, and then I do the same thing on Instagram, and then I get to this point where I'm just scrolling. There's zero purpose now. I'm stuck in this like doom scroll, and I'm like, well, I was trying to get followers. Now I'm just scrolling through people's stupid TikToks and bullshit, right?
Well, what's your drug of choice?
I like weed.
No, I meant like social media. Social media drug.
Oh man, you know what I'll say? Like, TikTok is intoxicating.
Oh yeah.
You'll sit there and you'll just be, like, I'll keep it on mute. It'll be on mute, and then I'll be like, oh, what's that?
Oh, but they know that they put captions.
Yeah, and then you're like, oh, what's the next one? Oh, 1 second. Oh,
What's
cool.
yours?
You know, this getting audited.
I was gonna ask you too. Mine, lately it's X or Twitter because I like the free speech element.
Yep.
I think a lot of it is captured and bullshit, like the other ones.
Yeah.
Twitter's very good for that. Like, it's so uncensored, and I love that about it.
Yeah, it reminds me of old internet.
That's what I said. I said that the other day. I said, man, go on Twitter and you'll see cartel murders and anything you want to see. If you want to see the next school, if there's pictures of a school shooting, it's there. You know, fucked up shit that you don't want to see, but it's all available to you on Twitter. And
I prefer that. I like that more than like a manicured, like censored bullshit. Because like Instagram, I think Instagram is like toxic poison
for sure
to people. Like, I've traveled to a lot of these places in the world that people will go on Instagram. Not a lot, a good chunk. And literally, when I went to, like, say, the Eiffel Tower, everybody is there taking the same fucking photo. All the time. Everybody's like...
At the lawn.
Yeah, the lawn. Staying there and being like their finger over the Eiffel Tower, like looking down and like touching this. Or they're standing there and they're putting it on their hand. Yeah. Every single person. It's like everybody just goes around the world, these places, to take the photo, to see, and they repeat it. Not only that, but also even like TikTok. There's a small group of people who are the trendsetters, who are like the biggest names in it. They do these things. Everybody else is literally just copying the same things they do to try to get some level of the same kind of like, I don't even call it like clout as that. Yeah. And it's like this never ending like copy fest. Yep. And the thing is, I used to like TikTok years ago. It was popping when I was in India in 2018. and it was popping over there. Like TikTok was going good, and I enjoyed it quite a bit at that time because there's a lot of my feed was a lot of like tutorials on photography and interesting stuff that actually made me feel good.
Right.
But now it's just like a shit fest, and I think a lot of the problems we have right now is that algorithms are feeding us stuff because before, like with YouTube and websites, people used to choose what they want to see. It was always headlines, and then you choose what you want.
Yep.
But now people are just fed.
Yep.
Fed. So it's like what's happening now with the algorithms. I'm a big technologist, so I'm working actually on an AI project right now. But a part of it is that these algorithms are feeding our view of the world.
Yep.
And we're getting fed these things we wouldn't normally choose to see.
For sure.
And it's all about engagement. And all engagement is either like, it used to be cute cats on YouTube. And that was like the biggest thing that went viral all the time. Cute cats or like random things that were just people that like love to see.
Yep.
It was always a cute factor.
Sure.
And then it became essentially rage bait.
Yeah.
Everything was about how like angry you can get at something.
Yep.
And now the way people get actually noticed in the world, I struggle with this a lot because if you want to get noticed in the world in any way, it's usually about making somebody angry about something.
Yep.
Everybody's in these silos of like, this is what I believe. Everybody's looking for a confirmation bias. They want to see something that they agree with. Either they agree with it or they hate it. And that gets into the post, gets into the comment.
Yep.
And that comment tells the algorithm that there is engagement in this. It doesn't know the difference. It just knows people are commenting. It doesn't know people are angry or happy. Anything that could be divisive, say if it's right-wing or left-wing politics, you're going to get half the people that are going to love it, half the people are going to hate it, but they're going to comment.
Absolutely.
And that pushes this thing like beyond belief to the top because now all of a sudden everybody, it doesn't know that people...
Or it doesn't care either.
It doesn't give a shit. It just makes them money because they want you to stay on the platform.
Yeah.
That's all they give a shit about, making money.
Yep.
So in the desire for them to make money, I remember... You guys remember what it was like before social media?
Yeah, I mean, it seems
2006?
like a long ways away, but yeah, it seems like I'm only 32, but
been on like I remember I joined Facebook in 2007.
Yeah, me too.
So
I never used it though, but
it just seems like
before
a long.
then, not really like, but Facebook was a hell of a lot different too back then.
Yeah, it was.
It was mainly like posting on people's wall, or you'd make a status because it would be before. It'd be your name, and then you would write, is going to the grocery store.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
Remember that?
It was more of a chat than anything. There wasn't like this video feed or anything like that.
No.
Right?
And Twitter, too, was like little micro tweets of like, not only that, is going to the store, but like, I feel like this. I feel like that.
Yeah.
And now it's gone to this like whole business where it's like, if you don't exist on there, you don't exist in the world. But also what happens on there is not actually what happens in the world.
No.
If you go out in the world and you see the people, it's all sensationalism and knee-jerk reactions. It's literally people just like afraid of shit. Whatever politics you're on, it's all people exaggerating for views. It's all clickbait headlines everywhere you look.
A lot of fear mongering, a lot of
everywhere direction.
A lot of these things, It's actually definitely ruined my YouTube feed because if, like, say this morning I get up at 6, I make coffee, I'm like, all right, what's on YouTube? If I was watching something the night before that was, like you said, some rage bait, and I'm like getting into it the night before, in the morning, that's all I'll have on my feed. It's like the same podcast, the same types of podcasts. And if I'm on my TV, it's not like I'm searching shit. I'm just going to click what's on the screen. And I go down the rows and I'm like, this is literally the same fucking bullshit. Every fucking video is wants me to click it to get angry at it. Then I'm gonna click the next one, and the feed's gonna send me. You get this like distorted feed of videos where it's like, oh, is this my interests? Like this is what I'm into, and then you start questioning like, well, am I that guy? Is this my feed?
For mine, like if you pull it up, it says Mike Tyson scares Tucker Carlson. Shane Gillis hates Europe.
Yeah.
50 Cent was not afraid of Kanye West.
Yeah, and notice the words that they use, right? Yeah. Afraid, scared, hates, right?
It's all negative. That's what the world's run by, is negativity. It's not a...
Well, it's the most sensationalist topic headline.
Or what another thing is, sound like a seal. Another thing is this bullshit... What's the word when you do something to... You put it on to people like, I helped this lady, but I filmed it, and then you post it, but you don't really give a fuck. You get it for virtue signaling.
Yeah, virtue signaling. Yeah.
Everything's about virtue signaling now with these, like, as much as I do respect that MD motivator guy, but that's what he's doing.
Yeah.
But then I remember in high school, a lot of people, they would go on those mission trips to, I think it was like
Kenya and
Guatemala or
stuff.
something, and build
Yeah.
houses for
It's good,
kids,
yeah.
right? And they would post these pictures on Instagram. Like, it would be a girl there, and she's with like 10 kids, and they're all like, you know, kind of doing what you do, get a picture with, but it was probably like that for her. And the caption of the photo would be like, can't forget their smiles.
Yeah.
And I know she doesn't really give a fuck about any of these poor children. She's posting this to get likes, and wow, good for you.
Yeah.
That's all it's about. It's not about any like, and that's what it's turned into a lot with, you know, helping the homeless and then posting it and filming it, and that's what I don't like. The internet went that way too, and it's I don't like that at all.
Hashtag I'm so good.
Yeah, that's it. Like I'm more good than you.
Yeah.
I'm gooder than you. Not to use porn, but that's what it is. You know.
That's my difficulty. I refuse to do that. It's kind of strange. It's like this podcast. It's called Everything is Broken. In a weird way, yes and no. For some people, everything is great.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there are some people in the world who are deeply, deeply down the selfishness and greed. And for them, everything is amazing.
Yeah.
They love it, this shit. Because, like, they just keep making money. And they just keep having more and more power and control.
Yeah.
Like, for instance, like, I don't know if you guys are into conspiracies, and I'll imagine you would be.
Yeah.
But, say the Rock, like, you know, they have that list of richest people in the world?
Sure. Forbes list.
Our list is complete bullshit.
Yeah,
because like that's just public
Yes.
share money. They don't actually have that money. Like Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos, that's their value of stock they have in those companies.
Their net worth, right?
Yeah.
They don't have liquid.
And that's
$80 billion.
interesting because they asked Elon that question, and Elon even said it. He's like, I'm not the richest person in the world. He's like, if you think about it, Putin or Kim Jong-un, they have an army in a country, or like just people like that. Like, he mainly said Kim Jong-un. It's like, this guy, like, you're saying I'm rich. This guy has a whole military at his command. Like, what do you classify rich as?
Yeah.
He owns everything there. It's like, and so he even
sort of yes and no. I'm thinking more like the Rockefeller family.
Rothschild.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
In the 1800s, under Standard Oil, they were already billionaires in the 1800s.
Yeah, which
money
is wild.
compounds. How much do they have now?
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
don't know.
Like
unlimited.
quadruple trillions. Like literally, if you just put $1 billion in the bank and let it sit in interest, you would be like a trillionaire right now.
Yeah.
And you know what? And it's so interesting because I don't know if you. So this is if we're going into conspiracy. You know James Bond.
Mm-hmm. Ian Fleming.
How he worked for counterintelligence with the British military. So then you know how people make movies to tell the truth.
I lived in them, yeah. Yeah.
Right. So, but they tell the truth, but then people are like, oh, that's bullshit. It's Hollywood. But they're actually trying to like tell the truth about it. But they can't just outright come and say this is what's going on because they'll be like, you're fucking crazy. Mm-hmm. So they hide it in movies and shit.
Yeah.
And they say that he like took some real life experiences and then wrote the books of James Bond to say this is what's going on because it's all about spies and shit.
Yeah.
And I always thought about the one organization in James Bond, Spectre. And like, and you talk about the Rockefellers, like, what if there is like, you know how they have those secret meetings and Ernest Blofeld or Stavro Blofeld, like, what if that is what's actually going on in this world? And he was back then was just trying to make light of like where did he get that idea from? You know, the guy worked in World War II, right? So
he did have CIA some clearance. I think they've talked about that. He did know some things. I've done a deep dive in this for like 20 plus years. This is one of the reasons why I decided to go a different route is because I started learning too much. There's a whole thing of like it's hidden in plain sight.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, for sure.
I got deep into like my early 20s. With that journey I was talking about earlier, I got deep into like, well, what's really going on here? And a lot of it is bullshit. And a lot of it is actually just like semblances of truths. From whatever, I look at like how many 10 different sources I can find of something and kind of amass together like what's the potential possibility of this going on. And for instance, the Rockefeller family, I would say, is like nowhere even close to the top end. They were like middle layer of like the PR front of that level because they're too visible. The people who actually are really more powerful are the ones. People you wouldn't even know, families you wouldn't even know their names.
Yeah,
you can even go to the Rothschilds. Even the Rothschilds are like close I would say, but not quite. There's all these other families that are like intermingled that you wouldn't like the Merovingian family line, the Peyusur family line. There's like all these family lines that you would never hear of that have so much clout and power in the world.
Yeah.
Like I just did it for fun. I went on Google Maps and I looked up the Hudson River and I just like did a little journey up the Hudson River. And I'm like, what's going on here? So I looked at these little mansions along the way. There's these mansions from all these families. Like there's the Vanderbilts; those are known.
Yeah.
But they lost all their money.
Yeah.
In a couple generations, they're
on Netflix
Their
now.
kids have no idea how to hold that money. I guess,
Yeah.
but like they lost it all. But these other families, like even the Kennedy family, like you know how they got their money, right? Like Joe Kennedy, JFK's dad, who got him elected, run a bank. That's how they have their money. They're massively rich families that have been in the American political system, but they didn't need to be. Right now there's like 105 Kennedys and they're all super massively rich, but it's because of their money passed down through generations. They don't need to do shit.
Yeah, no, for sure.
But there's all these other families. So you go up the Hudson River, you have the Vanderbilts, you have the Irvings, or Livingston family. It's like even like new American money.
Yeah, a lot of
super
oil
rich.
money.
Yeah. But if you go to Europe, you have all these family bloodlines that go back
The
thousands
coat
of
of
years.
arms and stuff.
Yeah, even the Rothschilds and how that came about, and the banks they run the central banks. Like even the fact that the Fed in the U.S., you have no idea who actually. They've never been audited.
Yep.
And you have no idea who actually like has the share of it.
Yeah.
How the hell do you know?
It's wild.
And they speak about how much they have infinite money. Like you've seen videos or like interviews of who's the guy, the Fed chairman right now, Powell. He's like, we have infinite money supply essentially.
Yeah.
What does that mean? Like money means jack shit at this point. No. The U.S. is $34 trillion in debt.
Yeah.
What does that mean? Money means actually nothing.
No.
Yeah, it means nothing.
Especially if you can just print it and if you can just print money and hand it out, I mean, and then it loses value. Like, what are we even talking about? You know what I mean?
The thing is I don't think that. I think the U.S. has been building its. You know, they have the largest stockpile of gold.
Yeah, they do for sure.
And they have that simply in case their currency goes to hell.
Well, I looked it up. They screwed everybody over. There was actually the quick story on that. During World War II, U.S. became the safeguard of gold. So
they took it from Germany, right?
No, they took it. They actually, before World War II, there's actually this interesting story. I'm gonna go on a little tangent here.
Yeah,
basically, put this out.
Please.
World War I happens. Okay, World War I was this thing, everybody knows. But the thing is, it was actually a big family fight.
Yeah, it was cousins.
Yeah, like second cousins. Like all of them were cousins. Literally, like the King of England, King George, was cousins with. Okay, so actually, the country I'm from was where the war started. So the Archduke Franz Ferdinand was assassinated in Sarajevo in 1914. He was the second in line for the throne of the Habsburg dynasty family in the Austro-Hungarian Empire. They didn't like that. That's because of various things going on. It was like this Serbian, Yugoslavian assassination group, the Black Hand, killed him.
Yep.
They didn't like that. They declared war on Serbia at the time. And they were backed by Kaiser Wilhelm of Germany. German Empire just started at that time. Those two were cousins. So they backed each other. But on the other side, we're all cousins too. The Tsar of Alexander of Russia was also cousins with these people. And so was King George of England. They were all cousins together. So they were just like cousins having this beef in a way. But it was two cousins versus two other cousins. And they were kind of fighting this empire war versus other people. And there was this idea of war. Fast forward, that finishes. At that point, England wants to get certain things. Guess who funds most of England's bankroll in World War I?
Who?
Ellen de Rothschild.
Okay.
He gave loans. This is well documented. He gave loans to England, a lot of them in that thing. In retribution that he had a Zionist opinion at that point.
Right.
Since the 1800s at that point. He was already flexing to get Israel back.
Sure.
From the Ottoman Empire at the time.
But why would England need money? They already had tons of money from their empire. Why would they need more? As loans.
It's well documented, but like
the Bank of England is huge.
It is, but the thing is, it's not really he runs that bank too. Like if you've seen the origin of the Rothschild family, they actually made most of their money during the war in 1800 between Napoleon and England. If you go back.
True.
Like have you heard the story? Napoleon was fighting in Waterloo, and it was unknown if Napoleon was going to win or England was going to win. And he had this is probably legend, but like he had a guy on a horse that basically was getting the information from what happened at that battle, and he went in and basically found out that Napoleon lost that war to English in Waterloo at that time, and he had that information. And then, but he put out the information that England lost. And it destroyed the stock market overnight. Everybody dumped all their shit.
Oh.
And he bought everything back up at pennies because he knew the truth. And he knew there was a time frame between when they're going to find out that England actually won against Napoleon. But they didn't know the time. They thought he lost. So they were like hedging their bets like, oh my God, we got to get rid of all these things before we lose it all. And he bought it all up at pennies. And that's how he made the original, like, the game has always been, in my opinion, destroy it all, becomes pennies, and then buy it all up.
Absolutely.
Over and over again.
Yeah.
And it consolidates money over and over again. Like 2008 financial crisis, same thing. Destroy it all, buy it all up pennies.
Yep.
Because the value of the actual physical stuff is all that matters. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, eventually it bounces back, right?
Yeah.
So you think we're in due for everything going to pennies soon? You think it's a
constant cycle, yeah.
Do you think it's imminent, or do you still think there's a delay?
It's inevitable. Actually, I think the Ukraine war helped America. It's a lot of money you think that's being sent to Ukraine, but it actually has stopped America from being in a massive recession and a massive depression, I feel. Because even though it's like $200 billion that they've sent, you think it's sent, but it's actually not. Only a small amount actually sent to run their country. They literally bought off of Ukraine as like, I don't know how you feel about the Ukraine war. What do you think?
Not a fan.
I think it's,
mostly bullshit.
I just think Canada doesn't need to be involved in it, but obviously there's a lot of nuance and there's a lot going on behind the scenes that, you know.
People are dying. That's horrible, regardless.
For sure. No, I don't. I'm not. I'm not pro. The war shouldn't happen. I'm not pro war, but I also think that Canada doesn't need to be involved in it, and that's where I stand. I understand that that's my stance with the Middle East too, like.
You figure your own shit out. Leave us out of it.
Well, I mean, how long the war in the Middle East has never not ended. Like, there's been constant conflict in the Middle East for forever, right? So it's like, and I know a lot of it has to do with the Americans and colonization and all these different random situations, but I just think at this point, Canada has got its own issues and a lot of issues, and we don't need to be involved in sending $9 billion to Ukraine and this money to Israel. And I think we need to fix Canada before we involve ourselves in these wars. But that's besides the point, anyways.
Yeah, well, let's focus on ourselves, kind of, and get ourselves like. Literally, the amount of people like are dying of fentanyl overdoses.
Yeah.
At this moment.
Yeah.
Not even including in the U.S. Like, I've been to L.A. and I've seen it. It's fucking rough.
Yeah.
But also even in Vancouver, seeing it, it's like, let's take care of our own people before we spend billions.
Yeah.
I get that, and that's a general mindset. I think everybody's kind of on. Not everybody. There's some people who don't push for that because they think it's what's the word? Compassionate.
Yeah. Empathetic to their situation, I guess.
I don't really believe that.
Yeah.
Like, when people are in the gutter, you say, hey man, you put out a hand and say, hey, I can help you get out of this. But like,
there's a catch.
Yeah. Like, you can't just enable it. It doesn't make sense in the name of compassion.
Yeah.
Like,
well, as far as like fentanyl and the drug problem and stuff like that, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Skid Row.
This is where you don't know this neighborhood, but that's what this is. In this neighborhood, it's
crackheads.
All crackheads. There's a shelter down here. There's Howard Johnson or what do you call it?
Hotel?
No. Fuck. What's that society that gets people off drugs? Either way, every available resource for people with drug problems or homeless problems, all these things are located right here. So I see it firsthand every single day, right?
It's the ground zero of this in the city.
For Cambridge, this is where all of them live. And you know what? I think at one point I would have maybe had some kind of sympathy for them, but just living here for the last 6 years and just seeing people take advantage of it and not even trying to help themselves out and not trying to get themselves out of a situation. I understand fentanyl's got a grip on people, even heroin and crack and meth. All these things are obviously very addictive and But I've just very much lost any kind of will to help people out, especially when they're breaking into people's houses, they're stealing shit from people, they're assaulting people, and these are hardworking, normal Canadian people that are just trying to get by paycheck to paycheck, and it's just hard to feel bad for them at this point. I mean, from my experience around here, anyways. So.
But like we mentioned it in the car, the reason it's so gotten this part is because of this progressive way that this country is going towards communism, and it's not our fault. It's the government legislation, it's policy, and these people that are down bad, they're
there's no incentive, is what you're kind of saying.
It's like welfare keeps you poor. No one is doing anything to help them get better. They're just giving them places to continue doing it.
I also don't know what would the solution be, because it seems like any municipality or our government has tried a variety of solutions: decriminalization, methadone, rehab, jail. All these things have been tried like time after time, and then the drugs are only getting more addictive and harder. So it's like, I don't have a solution, so I'm not going to suggest a solution. And I've thought about this a lot, right? I don't know what the solution is to get people off the streets and get people off of drugs, but I think we've tried a lot of different methods, right? And we see it in Vancouver right now, and you've been in the mix of it, and they decriminalize it in Vancouver, right? And you know I don't know if it's
they decriminalize theft in California.
These things,
that's wild.
It's obviously not making things any better, and they're begging like, hey, let's criminalize these things again. And yeah, in San Francisco, California, you know, there's basically it's basically the Wild West at this point. And is it working for the benefit? I don't see it, but I don't know if like jail time is helping either, or if rehab is, you know, it all costs taxpayers money in the end of it. And I don't know, where do you put your money? What's the solution? Do you leave them to their own devices? Like, I have no idea.
Solution's education, I think.
There isn't this. I don't know. There isn't necessarily a solution either, other than like hearing people out. Like, here's the thing. The whole, like, how do we say this? There's a saying. It's like, if you're young and not liberal, you don't have a heart.
Yes.
If you're older and you're not conservative, you don't have a brain.
Yes.
Yes.
It's because I think I've been fighting this for a while. When I was like a teenager, I liked the idea of socialism as well.
Right.
Because like the idea of like, we're all fair, the government pays, I just do our thing I love, we get all money, there's no differences, there's no super rich, there's no super poor. But the problem is it creates a cap. These people who are, the thing is, I grew up in a socialist country.
Yep.
The natural ambition of human people gets totally squashed because like you just can't. There was no businesses.
No.
You're not allowed to have a business. You can run, like, say, as a government employee, you run a restaurant. Yep. My mom told me this. I went to Prague. She was like, recently, in like the last couple of years, she was remarking, she hasn't been there since early 80s. Yeah. And she was saying how vibrant and alive it is now, because back then it was just all boarded up and useless. Like, there's nobody, nothing. Yep. So you cannot run a business in a socialist government. No. It's all one state, one government, one business, essentially. Yeah. It wasn't actually, the idea that Marx had was never actually implemented properly. Marx's idea was essentially, Karl Marx, his theory is that the social people, the workers, will own the means of production. It was all about class warfare, essentially, class struggle. That's not what was happened, though. Essentially, they got rid of all businesses and the state became the one business, and the class struggles remained the same. Yep. You had upper class people who ran everything, inner group, and the dictator, and then you had everybody else who had everything shared. Yep. And there was some benefits to it. Sure. But mostly, if you look at Cuba or anywhere else, nobody gives a shit. There's nowhere to go. You get this job, you got nowhere to... You can never advance. You can never run a business. You can never achieve anything. You just basically show up to the same thing for your whole life. There's no will to live. Nope. And they literally do nothing because there's no point. Yep.
And at the same time, like, there's a lot of jobs out there that are very, like, you know, say you suck sewage out of, or you work in super treatment plants, or you work construction, like we work construction, right? These are jobs that generally people don't want to do anymore, right? Especially if it involves like working on an oil rig, or, you know, these tough, laborious jobs that are dirty and hard on your body, and they're not pleasant jobs. Like, people don't want to do those jobs, but they do them because they pay well, right? Like people that work in an oil rig, you can make a couple $100,000 a year, but you're killing yourself and you're doing, you know, you're in isolated, ways, right? So it's like, how do you get people to do these kind of jobs, especially in a planned economy? Why would I work on an oil rig when the guy that works at the restaurant, or, paints the whatever, you know what I mean, changes light bulbs. They're getting the same opportunity as I am. Why would I do these intense jobs for there's no incentive, right?
No.
Incentive drives the economy. It drives these things, right? So if there's no incentive, okay, well, I'm going to go and I'm going to go do your easy job too. Why would I go ahead and kill myself doing construction when I can just go and work at the market, right? Like that's a big thing too. Like how do you run an infrastructure? The infrastructure is all the most laborious jobs. How do you maintain an infrastructure if people don't want to do them already and there's no money in it, right? Like you have to entice people to do these things, right?
But it's also it drives quality down too. Like if you work 10% harder than the other guy, but you're gonna get the same, why should you? And if I work 10% less than the other guy, we're gonna get the same, then fuck it.
What's the saying? They pretend to pay us, we pretend to work, right? And that's the kind of it comes down to.
In that case, you might as well be a druggie sitting in the street because there's no difference for anything.
For sure.
Like why would you work if you're just gonna government? Like I think in California they give them like $800 a month, but I think it costs. I saw an interview once. Government gives them $800 a month. I've seen these situations. They get free food from the food bank, not food banks, but like the soup kitchens.
Sure.
And they live in these tents, and they get the $800, but their drug habit costs them about $200-$300 a day.
So that money's gone.
They have to figure other ways to get that money.
Yeah.
And usually, what do they call it? They call it boosting.
Yes, boosting.
They
smash
the window and take the shit
Yeah.
and go sell it. And there's literally places where you go sell it to.
Yeah.
And they resell it to somebody else.
Yeah.
And the other thing they do is they sell their bodies in the street.
Yeah.
And like that is not really a compassionate way to give people this situation where all they do is drugs, and the come off is so hard that they need to get more, so they need to steal more to get more to buy more, or sell their bodies and end up sucking things in back corners.
That's right. Yes, you can, and then you're putting your life at risk, your health at risk. All these things are just stacking against you.
That's not really a solution, is it?
It's not a solution at all.
But here's the thing: how much do you guys know about like dopamine?
What the good drug, the drug that goes in your head when you feel good?
Dopamine's a pleasure
reaction.
chemical. Yeah, it's a neurochemical. I listen to a lot of Huberman, Andrew Huberman's lab.
Huberman, yeah.
And he's the actual neuroscientist, and he breaks it down, and I break it down more. And it's like I'm writing a book called Stimulation Nation.
Okay.
A couple books. One of them is called Stimulation Nation. It's basically how all of Western society is made to be a consumerist. Like we consume things in Western society. The rest of the planet basically makes them. We exploit our corporations exploit the rest of the planet so that they make stuff so that we can consume it.
Yes. Yeah, which is wild. It's a crazy system.
It's a fucked up system. And not only that, the people consume so much that they're ridiculously fat and unhealthy.
Yep.
And lacking any actual, what would be the word? Meaning in their lives.
Yeah, meaning is the way to put it for sure.
So why wouldn't they turn to drugs?
Yeah. Yeah.
And like I've done drugs to some
sure.
degree. I try to stay on the natural ones as much as I can.
Yep.
But if you look at the dopamine scale of what actually increases the amount of dopamine, people talk a lot about social media and dopamine releases from that. You do get some dopamine releases from that.
Yeah.
But the actual dopamine is actually released in the seeking of, like if you listen to Huberman a lot, it's actually the drive to get the thing. So like, I think baseline you get a certain level of dopamine, but then say chocolate is the least, and then next is sex, and then cigarettes. This is dopamine release. Cigarettes,
Yep.
nicotine. Specifically.
Yep.
And then cocaine, and then meth, essentially.
Right.
The amount of dopamine you get released in taking these things, especially meth, is so high. The amount of pleasure you get from this, the amount of reward you get, makes you not want to do anything else, period. Yeah. Imagine if it's the drive of actually, like, dopamine is built in the system of human beings to go hunt and forage for food. Right. We need to have a reward to bring back to our crew, our tribe. Mm-hmm. We literally have to go seek the reward. It's built in us. Yes. But it's been hacked. Yeah. These systems we have with social media and the drugs have made it so easy to get these dopamine releases. Literally, like, what used to be go and get the berries, or go and get the food, or go and get that animal and bring back to my village and we all live, has been hijacked to the point where now I can just hop on my phone and just get like put a post and like, oh yeah, that feels so good. Rewards. Oh yeah. it's like these little pings we get stimulation constantly. Like, oh, that's funny. It's like literally, in my book, I'm talking about how I've related it to basically being on a slot machine. Being on TikTok or on Reels or on Google or YouTube Shorts, it's like in a slot machine. You're just flicking the slots. Like it's like how it goes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Just flicking. Oh no, that was shit. That one's shit.
It's a
That one's
good
shit.
analogy.
Oh,
Jackpot.
that was good. Oh, jackpot. I got a good one.
Yeah, for sure.
That is a good analogy. Yeah.
It's
You
real
watch
good.
it 3 or 4 times, you're like, that's a fucking good one. I was waiting for that. And then you go, oh no, it's shit.
And you're always trying to chase
shit.
that. You're chasing that every time.
Yeah, and then it's like, I'm gonna get off. I really need to get off. But wait, there's one more good one.
Yeah.
There's one more good one.
Yeah.
And the same thing on YouTube. YouTube notice it too. It's like you get that wall of feed now.
Yep.
It's not about like searching anymore. People hardly search on YouTube anymore. It used to be all like search. Now it's all like this wall feed of videos of like headlines or thumbnails. And then you just keep like refreshing.
Yep.
The pull down, the refresh. And it's like, oh man, these thumbnails are all the same.
Yeah.
It's the same shit. Why don't they feed me something better?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
It's
a ne-
literally garbage.
It's a never-ending treadmill, but also like a jackpot, like a slot machine. And the thing is, like, you guys ever watch Mr. Beast
Yep.
on YouTube? His videos are essentially like being in a casino. Think about it. Like in a casino, they've actually put a lot of research into like those sounds. How they have the high-pitched sounds, like ding 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 ding
Yeah.
ding 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 ding.
Yeah.
That actually stimulates the body. And you go in there, and like those sounds and the stimulations feed you, and you want more and more and more. Watching a Mr. Beast video, for instance, he's like algorithmized or efficientized, or made his videos so efficient and so stimulating,
Yep.
and had broken it down to like microseconds of stimulation to know like he is basically feeding people drugs of visual stimulation and auditory stimulation in his videos
Yeah.
constantly, and he's getting rewarded for it heavily. He's doing some things, he's giving people away money, and that actually feeds into the stimulation, like the feel good. Like you go, why do you watch his videos?
Oh, I honestly, I watch his videos because I loved it. Because I could almost see myself there getting a Tesla or getting a huge cash prize from almost no task, right? That's why if I watch it, I'm like, I'll think about it and I'll be like, why did I just enjoy that? I'm like, all right, he just gave some guy 50 grand for doing nothing. And I'm like, that's something. It's like, man, imagine if I could get 50 grand from doing nothing. You know what I mean? Like for me, that's not, when I watch a Mr. Beast video, I'm like, he just gave that guy a Tesla for no reason. You know what I mean? Or he bought this guy something, or he bought, you know what I mean? That's what I'm always saying the whole time. And I'm conscious of it too.
What are you?
Honestly, I watch his videos. I don't really watch his videos. I watch his more behind the scenes of people asking him questions. Because there's this one video, and this guy just interviews him, interrogates him, and like, because you know how he hired a guy to like eat, sleep like him. He hired, and I just watch his mind of how he works and how those are the videos I usually watch about Mr. Beast, and I watch what he uses and how he constructs these videos. That's what I'm more interested into, because in a way I want to replicate it. And it's like this is it's like one of those master classes, but he's not on it. But he is so he reminds me of like a big brother, like to everyone. He's not a dick. There's no controversy ever with him, but he's also not virtue signaling. Well, he is in a way, but he's also not, because he's kind of like Oprah.
Yeah.
And yeah. He's just this. He's almost like the Great Gatsby in a way.
Yeah.
Which I really like that book.
Yeah.
That's a good book, and that's what I like. That's what I find stimulating about him. How he's just like this figure that can make your dreams come true, and it's very interesting to me. But I personally think his content is directed at a younger audience, and I'm a little bit older, so I don't really think of it like that. But I look at I'm more interested in the behind the scenes of it, and how but also he's been doing it for 10 years.
Yeah.
And
As far as your book goes, like, that sounds like first of all, it sounds like you're going to write a really great book, honestly, because you sound like you have a lot of knowledge and actually more importantly, you have a lot of insight, right? So as far as your book goes, like, what's the plan? So have you written a good portion of it? Have you talked to potential publishers? Like, where are you at in the stage of the book?
Well, that one I've half written. I have 2 books I'm writing, because of ADHD, I kind of go back and forth, and it's a bit of a what do I call it? I have to go with where the energy is because of the way I am.
Yeah.
It's been a long time figuring out who I am and how I function and how I want to do it. But anyway, so I have these two books I'm writing right now. One is called Stimulation Nation, and the other one is called Be Joy Now. The Be Joy Now is like a continuation of another series of books of somebody else.
Oh, okay, cool. That's a cool concept.
Yeah. So my idea is like joy exists in the moment, and there's a lot of aspects of joy that people don't really realize. And I found a way to be of joy just by being my full self. But it's like to let things go and fall away, so that joy is always available, and you have to let things go and fall away so that you don't hold yourself back from actually experiencing it. Because the more you're holding on to things around you, and I'm supposed to be this way, or I'm supposed to do this, or I don't this, it creates holding, which stops joy from flowing. It's like it's our natural state of being. Yeah. Essentially. That's cool. The Stimulation Nation, I just noticed that people around me, because of social media and the way everything is, and the way how the world functions, or like, I think everybody thinks it functions. I realize how much the West is completely like addicted to stimulation constantly, never ending, always ongoing. For sure. And you go to other countries and you're like when I went to India, the people have almost nothing a lot of times. Yep. Like literally absolutely nothing. But if you look at their eyes, there's so much more joy and lightness and like ease in their eyes. Just the fact they don't have all these things, they don't have the hustle. The hustle to prove yourself constantly. Which is the way I define as like the West, essentially. Which is like a double-edged sword, because it's like the reason it exists is like you can do anything. But it's also like you have to prove yourself constantly. It's a double-edged sword.
That's kind of where I'm stuck in my life right now. Because like before I started doing all this, I always worked really hard, right? But I didn't have this like almost like FOMO about the world. Like I didn't think about any of this. And then I really got on the internet, and then it kind of like, now I'm like, comparison. Yeah. You're like, well, he's doing it, why can't I do it? And then you start doing it, and you're like, well, why did he do it and I'm not doing it? Like, why am I still here, you know? Yeah. And it really like, now I'm kind of stuck in this like weird, exactly what you just described. I'm in this like weird zone where I'm not exactly happy, but I'm still hustling, but the hustle's not really making me happy. But I know I have this like end game where I'm like, then I'll be happy. But do you ever really, even if you get there, you're going to be happy? You know what I mean? It's like this weird situation. And I think that's kind of what you're describing.
Yeah, there's a great quote. I think it's like, comparison is a thief of joy.
Yeah, for sure. And like,
that's the internet allows us to compare endlessly with somebody else. Like, that person's doing so much better than me. Yeah. That person is doing whatever. Actually, it helps to go and see people who are doing much worse than you, and actually try to see if you can help. Because that gives you a much better understanding of like, holy shit. Like, I think gratitude is the solution to everything. To be honest with you, like, to look at somebody who's having a hard time and help them in some way puts everything into perspective. Like, holy shit, I am so much more privileged than I thought. Instead of being complacent about how horrible this is, you can actually end up being like, holy shit, I have so much. And that foundational shift changes everything.
Yeah, I agree. And I try to put that in perspective. I try to get it into that head zone. It's my dog. It's easier said than done for sure. But I also think that kind of ties back into consumerism, because you're always chasing. You're also chasing the next latest and greatest, right?
Feed me.
Yeah, exactly.
I need more.
I actually have a decent. I thought it was a decent segment on capitalism versus consumerism. Like, capitalism is just an idea of free markets and blah blah blah. Consumerism is the idea of like, oh, the new iPhone doesn't have. I got the new iPhone. It doesn't have the headphone outlet and this and that, whatever else. You know what I mean? It's like, all right, well, that's capitalism's fault. Well, no, it's more consumerism, because you're feeding Apple, you're allowing Apple to continue to sell phones at crazy prices, and you're always chasing the next iPhone, and that's more, you like to blame the system of capitalism, but that's more of you buying into this consumerism, right? Yeah. So I think I have a pretty good bit on that. Check it out in the clips if you want, but that's another thing. You're always it's like the social media, you're always chasing that, right? So,
well, we vote with our dollars. Money talks. Like, literally, people think that we have, like, not capitalism. Democracy is supposed to work that people have a say, and we elect representatives, and they go to the whatever government and they represent us. It doesn't really work that way. Money talks. Whoever has the more money gets more of their way. For sure. Literally, that's what lobbyism essentially is. Like, we feed you money, we get what we want. Yeah. Because people don't feed the money, like, they give, like, The fact that it takes hundreds of millions of dollars for a person to take a campaign and to become either a president of the U.S. or a prime minister of Canada doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
In a way, it's not representing people. It's representing, like, say, 2008 when Barack Obama became the president of the U.S. The change you believe in, it was all like change, believe. That was such a bullshit idea that, like, people thought that he would make a difference. He didn't really do anything that he really said he would do, except for Obamacare.
Yeah.
And do you think he was not going to be beholden to the hundreds of millions of dollars of people who paid into his campaign?
No. Yeah.
Like banks and all these super PACs and all these people?
Yep.
They're the ones who are getting their way, not the people.
Yep, absolutely.
So what do we do with that? That's just something that we built into the system. We actually haven't changed it ourselves. We can change it ourselves. We don't want to, though, because we're mostly complacent and just keep complaining about it.
But I think the big thing for that to change and what a lot of people overlook, if they want things to change in the federal government, a lot of people need to start focusing on local elections.
Yeah, I agree. I agree a lot.
The mayor, and because it's those people that eventually, work their way up to run in these federal elections, and no one gives a fuck about these local, regional elections. And that's where all your money really goes. It's like the property tax and everything to your area. And if people start focusing more on that, which no one really does, they would elect someone that was one of them, because usually that's how the local election starts. Just one guy that lives there wants to change his community, instead of these people who have been just born from money and just get a spot in these federal, parties. I showed you that one. I don't know if you know, but Obama and the Bushes and Dick Cheney, and it goes all the way back. They're all family. 7 presidents are related.
Yeah.
And it's crazy.
Yeah.
It's the same people getting elected.
Yeah.
And you can even say like Trudeau, like he was only elected because his dad was in, right? So because he just had that name, right? So I think to get real change, people need to start focusing where they live.
Yeah,
I agree.
I also, like I said, you vote with your dollars. That's why I refuse to say give money to Amazon. It's like it's super convenient and such, and I get that, but they're such a shit company overall.
Yep.
To be straight up, Amazon shit.
Yeah, Amazon, you suck.
I refuse to buy anything. I used to buy stuff from them before, but like
books. When it was just books.
Not even books. Just like it's just the easiest convenient place to get some things.
Yeah, like this.
Certain things.
$10. I got this on Amazon, and like, am I gonna drive to Walmart to get it? I'm not. Like.
Yeah.
But you're right. That even Walmart's a bad example because that's just Amazon with stores.
Yeah.
Right. But like, where do I buy this for $10 locally? Right.
Yeah.
That's what people do. It's like, oh, I can buy this mouse, or I can go or where do you even brick and mortar's kind of dying. Like, where do I even buy this now? Like, I go to Best Buy, I'll spend twice as much probably, but you probably get a better product. But you're right. It's the convenience of this will be at my house tomorrow.
Yeah.
Right. And I agree. Amazon's a fucking nightmare of a company, and it's almost. It's too big to fail now. Like, in a sense, it almost can't fail because there's so much so much money coming in and out of it, and they've just built this institution.
Yeah, but you vote with your dollars. Like, I refuse to use it, therefore I'm not giving them my dollars.
No, and that's true. Like, say like if there's 390 million Americans, if nobody spent money at Amazon, they wouldn't exist. You're right about that.
That's what it's supposed to be. And like in 2008, when say in America they bailed out the banks because of the mortgage swap lending crisis, or whatever was going on. That's how capitalism is supposed to work. If your business is not viable, and it doesn't provide what people need, you let it fail.
Yes.
You don't prop it up with money.
Yes, buddy.
Because that tells you the market's saying this is not a viable business.
Yeah, I've been trying.
That's not capitalism.
That's capitalism.
No.
Free market.
No. Yeah, but what it's turned into, it's not a capitalist.
No, it's
market.
called crony capitalism.
Crony capitalism.
Like you said before, monopoly. That's not capitalism.
No. Capitalism actually meant about creating things, physical things. Like capital was about like manufacturing and a lot of things. Now that it's gone digital and everything's gone like Silicon Valley tech, it's not really capitalism anymore. It's making money for the sake of making money.
Yeah.
And it's like it's literally sheer exploitation.
Yeah.
That's also I don't fuck with Apple. Apple sucks ass because I won't buy an Apple product. I try not to. They have some nice products sometimes, but generally they suck ass.
Yeah.
Like the amount of money that they steal and keep and don't give and share and don't pay taxes.
Yeah.
Is just ridiculous.
For sure.
And like how can we feel like it's like in a world we live in a world where we consume things that we don't really think about the fact that there's some kids in the Congo who are mining cobalt and dying from cobalt inhalation right now so I can get my phone.
They can't even give them a pair of boots. Like, they're wearing sandals and bare feet. Like, the very minimum would give them a protection for their body. You know what I mean? That's the minimum they can do, even if they're not going to pay them any amount of livable wage. You can at least give them some safety glasses and a pair of gloves, you know? They don't even do that.
Or even, like, Apple pays Foxconn to make their, like, I don't know if you know this. I did a deep dive on how Apple makes their products. They source it from all over the world in different places, and then it all gets shipped to China, where it gets assembled in a Foxconn factory.
Yeah.
There's a guy that from US, a Chinese guy that went and he did an undercover thing in the factory. He worked there for a few months just to get undercover like information.
Right.
So he went to the factory and basically they have like mesh in the stairwells. So people were dying and like jumping and killing themselves.
That's crazy.
And they work 6 days a week, 12 hours a day.
Yeah.
Making these iPhones. Now imagine you're there and you're a worker and you screw one screw 12 hours a day. You're screwing the screw.
Yeah.
And they live together. They live in the same place they work.
Right.
They work for 12 hours a day. They live in a dorm. 250 people share one bathroom on one floor.
Deplorable.
That's fucked.
Yeah.
It's insane, bro.
And we kind of deal with that a little bit. Not as bad as that. Just in construction, the bathrooms are bad. So
But I can leave at any moment.
I sympathize for those people with their bathroom
Well, yeah, but
addiction.
it's like the truck stop thing, right? You kind of deal with it, but like you don't have 250 people sharing one bathroom.
No, that's fucked.
It's essentially slavery, but it's like
it's indentured servitude because
it's indentured servitude. Yeah, that's
they're
the right
literally
term.
making like imagine how many thousands of phones are passing through your hands in a day.
Yeah.
iPhones.
Yeah.
They're selling them for $1,000 each.
Yeah.
But what's crazy is that these people, they don't know anything except that. So they don't know how good it could be. To them, that's just normal reality.
What's better than being in a village working in a farm?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, yeah, you're back.
But does that have an effect on people too? So like, you know, we could say tribes in like the Amazon and stuff, they live at a lower level, like way lower level of poverty than we do, but they like, you know, all the social media, the drug, trying to prove yourself. They just live with a family in a village and they seem happier.
Way happier.
But they can't go to the grocery store. They work, but they're also probably a lot healthier. So it's like,
I think
if they don't know what they're missing, are they, you know what that means? Like, if they don't know what they're missing, then are they really that worse out?
Yes and no, but slavery is still slavery.
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
Again, you're in China and it's like these phones are thousands of phones are passing through your hands. You're getting paid $2 a day. Like the average amount of money people make in the world is $2 a day.
Yeah.
US, $2 US a day.
That's crazy.
That's like 6 days a week. That's like $52 a month you're making.
That's wild.
Right.
Yep.
And to them, and they're depending, it's relative because there's cost less to live where they are.
Sure.
But I can tell you a fact though. This is one of the things that I don't like, or the reason why I travel the world, is because I don't like being extorted. I feel like the world is bracketed off into two kinds of people: the sheep and the wolves.
Mm-hmm.
It has a negative connotation to be a sheep because it's kind of based on religion in the sense of Christianity. Like, you don't want to be a sheep and like follow the herd and stuff like that. But in this analogy, what I mean is the sheep are the people who basically just want to live their lives and be like regular people.
Graze.
Yeah.
They just want to graze. There's grass everywhere. They just want to live peacefully and they want their kids to be well off, protected, and go to schools and live their life.
Yep.
The sheep.
Yep.
But there's a certain amount of wolves, and the wolves need to feed on animal.
Yep.
Need to feed on sheep, and they're cunning as fuck. And there's certain wolves, and those are like the billionaires and whoever the tie-in business holders. They're cunning as hell, and they need to feed on the sheep. And the thing is, the sheep need to kind of just want to live in their lives. My life has been: I don't want to be a sheep, and I don't want to be a wolf.
Yeah.
I don't like to be a wolf either because the whole mentality of a wolf is eat or you'll get eaten.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to do that because I'm just perpetuating the whole system again.
Yeah.
I'm just continuing the same scenario. I don't want others to be enslaved and beholden to these same things that I don't think are great.
Yeah.
So that leads me to be an observer. So I've traveled the world being an observer of reality. And I'll tell you one thing. Here's an example. To live in downtown Toronto, it's like, or even Mississauga or anywhere around there, it's like $2,000 a month for a one-bedroom apartment.
Yeah.
$3,000 a month in downtown Toronto for a one-bedroom apartment or more. If you go to Egypt, you could get a one-bedroom apartment for $100 a month.
Yeah. Insane.
In like Alexandria on the Mediterranean.
Right. Yeah.
We're like, Alexander the Great founded.
Yeah.
That's
It's like
wild.
it's beautiful there.
Yeah.
I've been there. It's fucking gorgeous.
Yep.
And like I rather live there.
Yeah.
But the thing is, it's in balance to how much money they make there. They make less money there because their government's corrupt as hell. It's like a military government, so they don't make that much. So it's $100 a month. It's one of the lowest in the world. I think I looked at stats a lot, but Pakistan is like the lowest in the world. But like Egypt is like number 2 lowest, like cost of living, and the lowest in the cost of living in the world.
Right.
But I rather live there because the lifestyle is much more freeing,
Right.
and you pay much less. Especially if you take, like, if you work online, you make digital money online.
Right.
You bring that money over there. You're living
Yeah.
like a king for $100 a month.
Yeah, yeah. If you're working remotely and you're getting Canadian dollars in exchange for your time, and then you're living in Egypt, like it goes a long way.
Yeah.
But you can't participate in the local economy as far as work. Like if you worked within the streets of Egypt and you were some kind of vendor or in some kind of industry in Egypt, it wouldn't work, right?
You get paid pennies.
You get paid pennies. So you have to be able to make American dollars, some kind of currency outside of Egyptian dollars, right?
But they like it too. I think of it as international arbitrage. You make thousands of dollars over here in some form or whatever, who people are paying more or giving more for that ability.
Right.
And you take it to somewhere else where they make very little.
Yeah.
And then you dole it out there and you're expanding that.
Yeah.
But it also causes gentrification and a lot of problems in a lot of
Right.
places too. So it's kind of difficult to like live an ethical way. And like what I'd like to do is I go around the world to different places, like expat communities. Essentially, the future I think is no longer, I don't believe in nations.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of ridiculous that so many different people and so many different kinds of people in an area all think, like right now what we're seeing in all this divide of left and right politics is people have such a vast way of seeing things that they can't live all together. It's like it used to be America or Canada or any places like in the West was all Christian white people for the most part that had a very specific same way. That homogeneity leads to a lot of like peace and consistency and similarity. If you look at the Middle East, it's very homogeneous and very peaceful because they're all the same. It's very much like if you go to Dubai, it's like it's all Muslim people.
Yeah.
Very
Same values.
Yeah.
I think the same way. Yeah.
When you get more people, they mix either really culturally, racially, religiously. It's going to create some tension.
Yeah.
But it's going to create a lot more tolerance. Like
Right.
when I grew up in a small town, well not a small town, but when I grew up in the school, all my friends were from everywhere. Like I had a mixture of everybody from everywhere. I didn't know the difference to me. It was all the same shit.
Yeah.
And like that has led me to believe like there's no difference in people in the world. And I've noticed it from experience in the world that everybody's the same. And when you go places, like everybody literally is the same. They just, their circumstances are different, but the desire is all the same.
Sure.
But as that mixes, it's realized, like if you go to the US, California is known for being massively liberal and massively progressive.
Yep.
So if you want that, you go there.
Yeah.
You're willing to do it. That's what you believe in. You go there. But like if you look at Texas or
Florida. Yeah.
you get a different experience.
Sure.
That's what you want. You go there.
Yeah.
But I've been going around the world to these what they're called expat communities, and what those are really just immigrants that call themselves expats.
Yeah.
Literally, you're an immigrant who living in another country.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, white immigrants call themselves expats
Yeah.
because they don't want to be seen as immigrants.
Yeah. That's not a thing here, but if white people go to China or Japan or something, yeah.
It's funny though.
That is a funny. I never really thought about that. That is funny that they do that. It's like they don't want to be called an immigrant or an alien. They want to be called
I'm
an
an
expat.
expat.
It does sound way better. It's
What's
like, oh,
that,
that sounds.
expatriate?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
It
hilarious.
literally means you're an immigrant from like somewhere else.
That's just what Western people that go to other countries they call themselves.
Yes,
I
exactly.
never really thought about that, but that's actually hilarious.
It is literally.
That is funny. Only Western though. If you're from the Middle East, you're a goddamn immigrant.
Yeah, you come to Canada, you immigrants. Well, why
Yeah.
can't we call ourselves expats? No, you're immigrants.
No.
That's funny.
Why don't people call each other emigrants?
Yeah, you emigrate to another country. That's technically what you are. You're emigrating.
No one uses that.
No. Well, they did in the past, but now everybody just think this expat term has become a thing. It's just become I don't know. It's just become a thing.
It's
But it's
trendy.
mostly Western people that call themselves expats because they don't want to be seen as immigrants. Literally.
No, because how they think about immigrants is almost in a negative light, right?
Exactly.
So they don't want to look at themselves in that same light.
I'm an expat.
Yeah, exactly. It's
It
like,
is.
oh, I'm way cooler, but it's
How
yours.
dare you call me an immigrant?
That's right. Well, are you from here? No. Well, did you move here? Yeah. That's who you are.
It's that same Instagram thing. Basically, it's like hashtag expat. Like, I'm not an immigrant.
They have to make people know, like, you got to be aware that this is what I am.
Yeah. But I believe what's my favorite form of government is called anarcho-syndicalism, which
Okay.
is basically, it's got roots in anarchy.
Yeah.
Anarcho comes from anarchy. Syndicalism is basically the people in the area deem to decide what is needed in the area. So imagine people in the factory are in charge of figuring out what's going on in that factory.
Yeah.
Literally, I'm living here. I'm working here. I should have a say in what I do in this place.
Sure.
Not like somebody in Washington or in Ottawa doesn't know what's happening in Saskatoon.
No.
Why should they have a say what's actually happening there?
No.
And that's why there's rules for this. Like there's like provincial governments and there's like local governments.
Those are the representatives you're supposed to elect to go.
Yeah, but representatives means what? They're corrupt as fuck.
Yeah.
Like
That's the problem.
The system is made for incentivization, corruption.
Yeah.
Think about it. Like it's literally who pays the most gets the most.
Yeah. No, I know what you mean.
I think I kind of like that idea. I think it probably has its own
Technically,
issues.
that's what Marx actually was going for.
Sure. I think it's got its own issues. Maybe. I mean, I don't know if you have some kind of national defense system involved in that somehow, but you still have to have like. I'm a small government free market kind of guy, right? But you still need like in that system, so the communities kind of decide everything for themselves, right? It's kind of what it is. You still have some kind of overarching larger government that handles self-defense and stuff like that. Or not self-defense, national defense. Like would you still have a Canadian armed forces or United States military? Because like what's stopping somewhere like China just to say, oh, you guys don't have a national, you don't have a federal government, like, okay, we're going to just come in and take your shit.
Yeah, this is kind of the way it used to be. I feel like back in the day, there was all these small kingships and townships, and they were all there, and they just had different. Like if you look at Europe, there was like hundreds or thousands of little
hamlets and stuff like that, villages, And
it works as long as people don't want to take anybody else's shit.
Yeah, I
as
think
soon
it's
as
like
people start wanting to conquer somebody else's resources, it all falls apart.
But that's inevitable.
I know. That's
almost
the thing. We have to change the way people think.
Yeah.
But would you not say that's would you not say that's like a utopia?
I think it sounds great.
Because for the dawn of time, that's what people do.
Yeah.
Maybe that's just human nature. I don't know.
Sort of. I went across the world in different cities. Like I've been in small villages and small communities and small areas, like between 50 to 300 people. And they live relatively peacefully.
Yeah.
Until nobody that I've known of has come, but imagine somebody else comes and just wants to dominate it because they want the resources.
Right.
It generally doesn't happen, and they live pretty peacefully.
Yeah.
But then,
if you have something that someone else wants, how do you stop them from taking it?
That's where nation states came in, because there used to be empires before that.
Yeah.
Kingdoms.
Yeah.
And like they dissolved in World War I. Literally, World War I was empires fighting nation states.
Yeah.
Essentially, the ideas.
Yep. And coming out of that,
German Empire, Austrian-Hungarian Empire, and the Ottoman Empire. Last three empires.
Russia.
After that, and the Russian Empire, at the end of that, all empires were gone. They all dilapidated then. Ottoman Empire disbanded, became Turkey. There was a Russian Civil War, and it became socialist, the Soviet Union. And Austrian-Hungarian Empire disbanded, it became nation states. And German Empire disbanded, it became whatever it was.
Yeah.
But that's the end of empire, and nation states began. And that was like, what, 100 years ago? Yeah, 100 years ago.
Yeah,
exactly.
100 years ago.
105 years ago.
Yep.
And we haven't had anything since. But I think the future is breaking it down more in areas that people have more in common with each other, rather than these huge, like, imagine 350 million people across the U.S. How many of them have anything in common?
Oh, yeah. Agree.
Especially now with the amount of
immigration, globalization, like, and then it's
inevitable.
It's inevitable, yeah. And I think you're dead right with that, because you got, like, not to harp on Trudeau, but you got a prime minister that I would say majority at this point, the majority of the country doesn't agree with what he's doing, but he's so set that he's doing the right thing. But the people in the streets are like, well, this is not what I voted for. You know what I mean? So you're right. Like, he's not representing most people, but in his head he is, right? And I think that's a huge issue, because you got 30 plus million people. I don't even know
who he thinks he's representing.
Well, at some point, people agreed that this could be a good leader 8 years ago or whatever. People are like, all right, I like what he has to say, and he's got these things, and I agree with it. And then obviously 2 terms or whatever later, it's like, all right, maybe we don't agree with you anymore. But if you watch an interview with Justin Trudeau where they're voicing this to him, he's saying, like, no, like, this is, it's all good. Everything's fine. We're all good. Everyone's happy, right? We're doing what we need to do for Canadians. I made this promise to Canadians. And I think that's kind of what it's like. What you're saying is he's representing us, but not, right? Like, he thinks he is, but he's not, kind of thing. But
in theory, if you look at his stuff before he got elected, and when was he elected? I don't remember.
2015.
I don't even pay attention.
2015, I think.
His campaign stuff back then, it was a completely different person.
Yeah, I agree.
And like, if you look at his history, you look at how much he was involved in the World Economic Forum and being part of the young leaders situation, and how much Cynthia Freeland is involved and is on a board of the World Economic Forum.
Yeah.
It makes you really wonder, like, it costs like $100,000 a year to be a member to World Economic Forum?
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, who do you think pays for that?
Yeah.
You think he pays?
Yeah,
you
no.
think
That's taxpayers' money, yeah.
For both of them.
For sure, 100%.
And do you think that they have the interest of Canadians in heart or the interest of
greed?
What the World Economic Forum wants?
Yeah, 100%.
Like, I remember this one. You guys know, what's that independent news in Canada? There's
Vice.
Rebel
News, or the other one. Let's say Rebel News.
Yeah.
The last World Economic Forum last year, they went to go interview her, Freeland.
Yeah.
She was there.
Okay.
He went to go interview her and ask her questions like, a little bit of conflict of interest of like, you're on this board of the World Economic Forum, but also the Canadian finance minister or whatever.
Yeah.
She saw him and she turned around and ran the other way.
Wild. Like that, like that's just, like, if that's not a dead sign, like, you know what I mean? Like, you're avoiding this conflict, you're avoiding these questions. The Canadian people want answers about these things, and you're just like, oh, blinders. You don't need to know. Don't ask, don't tell. What we say is the rule, and that's it.
Do you guys watch documentaries?
All the time, yeah.
Most of them are U.S. based, but there's this one great one from many years ago called "Oh Canada, Our Bought and Sold Out Land."
Okay.
Have you ever seen that?
No,
one?
I haven't seen that. No. I'll watch it though. I'll watch it.
It's really good.
Is there animation to it?
Some. I think it's mostly just interviews, but it's animation a little bit.
Okay.
It goes, "Oh Canada, our bought and sold out land."
No, I haven't seen that.
Anyway, he interviews politicians literally. In there he interviews who was the liberal politician that was like in between after Trudeau,
Paul Martin.
Yeah, Paul Martin. He interviews Paul Martin. He interviews Jack Layton before he died.
NDP. Yeah.
He interviews who's in charge of the Green Party?
Oh fuck.
Elizabeth May.
Elizabeth May.
Oh,
He interviews her.
Yeah.
And he gets to the real core of it. Paul Martin was spinning like a motherfucker. He was like constantly like just like making shit up. It was just like what he asked him, what about this? He's like no. He's like talking in circles, literally.
Yeah.
Fucker.
At that point, when he became prime minister, he had to let go of one of his businesses, which is a shipping company which he was running, which has also been funded by like the Canadian version of the Rockefeller family.
Sure.
And that shipping company was, after he was prime minister, they found that there was like 100, like I think it was 100 pounds or 100 tons, I can't remember, of like cocaine strapped to the bottom of the ship, being put into the port. It's like, how would his family or the owners of the business not know about this?
Yeah.
Are they in cahoots? What's the point?
Yeah.
But he talks to other people like Layton and Elizabeth May, and what Elizabeth May said was really interesting. She said, our country has a credit rating. Our credit rating is with the World Bank or with the Council of Foreign Relations or with these other international bank conglomerates.
Yeah.
We have to do what they ask or our credit rating is impacted. Like, they literally stipulate what we need to do to keep our credit rating up. Basically, and stuff like hospital beds, amount of hospital bed vacancies and stuff like that was they dictated to get the loans.
That's crazy.
And that is like, this organization is actually more in charge of what policy is happening in a country than the country itself.
Yeah, that's insane. I didn't know that. That's an insane fucking thing, man.
Happened in Jamaica too. Like, when Jamaica became independent, they needed money, so they went to the IMF, the International Monetary Fund.
Yep.
And the International Monetary Fund was like, hey, we'll give you money, yeah, but first, because they needed to build their country after becoming independent from England.
Yep.
But they were like, you need to do this, 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 and this.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we won't give you money. And then you're kind of screwed. You have the money. You got to get money.
You got to do it.
So what they did is they had to build these international tax haven factories that basically these international conglomerates can have these like slave labor encampments where they're basically not tied to the country, where workers literally have to leave their country, Jamaica, to go into this slave labor encampment, which is international waters or international whatever, so they can extort the people.
Crazy.
They have to do that, and to the point where they basically, Jamaican farmers can no longer sell milk because the milk that they were getting from Florida was cheaper than the people getting the milk from the farmers in Jamaica.
Oh, that sounds like Canada with a Canadian club.
Yeah.
That's crazy because now they're just like, that's a whole industry of dairy farmers that were in Jamaica that just killed off, right?
They literally had to dump it in the streets because they couldn't sell it.
That's fucking insane, bro. That's crazy.
And these international tariffs is a globalization that is basically run like, you ever think to yourself, how is it easier and cheaper for me to get strawberries from China than it is to get strawberries from
Down the
Waterloo.
down the road?
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
It's because they're extorting the shit out of these people getting paid pennies over there, and they can get on a boat and go from China to Europe, get packaged somewhere in Europe, and get on another boat and come over here and still be cheaper than paying somebody here a living wage.
Yeah. And you know what? I was thinking about this as we're talking. I'm thinking about this credit score thing. The credit score thing really only matters if you need money from these organizations, right? I think Canada's in the position where we shouldn't have to borrow money from any of these organizations. Like, we have so many resources and great infrastructure and all these things. Like, we should not have to take loans from, you know, if we do things properly, that is, and that's obviously not happening at this moment. But if we run the economy a little better and we do things properly, we shouldn't have to take out large scale loans from anybody, right? Like, okay, you can say what you want about the oil sands, right? But like, that produced tens of billions of dollars in revenue a year, right? Tax dollars and all these things. Like, we shouldn't, and you know,
resource rich,
and it's not operating, right? It's a resource we're not taking advantage of, and that's a whole nother environmental question, whatever. But let's just assume that it's environmentally neutral. Like, these are resources that we could take advantage of, that we should never have to borrow money from any other country or any organization, right?
Yeah, but every country in the world is in debt.
No, I know. Then that's the insanity of it.
Who are they in debt to?
What is that? It's such insanity to me.
And who, if we decide not to pay it, what would be the ramifications?
Well, yeah, are you gonna come and take it by force? No. Like, how are you gonna get your money? Like, we have to concede to certain things for you to get your money. Well, what did we say? Like, fuck you and your money. We're not paying it back.
That's what Greece did.
Yeah. Greece has.
That's what Iceland did.
Yeah, I mean, well, let's do that. Let's do it. I'm down. Let's do it. Whatever it takes, let's do it. Let's gain some independence from from the WAF and all these things.
But then you're kind of on your own. Technically, that's what happened to Cuba. That's why Cuba is so dilapidated, is because all the sanctions that were put upon them, they are essentially floating out there in their own self.
Yeah, right.
Like, they are self-sufficient, have to become self-sufficient.
Yeah.
That's why it's like the way it is.
I guess
they disbanded themselves from this system.
I guess to that point, yes. Like, if we did the same thing,
or Venezuela
is another great example, and it's a complete disaster. If we did the same thing, right, and we said, all right, we're not doing this anymore, we're not participating in that anymore. I mean, yeah, the U.S. isn't going to stop, right? Like, say they don't get on board with that, like, yeah, they're going to be sanctions against Canada, right? I would assume, right? Like, what do we have that they need that bad, right? I don't know.
Well, that's the kind of way it works. It's like, if you don't want to play ball, all right, we'll sanction you. Let's see how much you can survive on your own. Yeah. It's like, basically, we'll make you suffer and pay until you come back and need us.
So then why is our government saying we're going to move away from fossil fuels, go to electric cars, but we have resource rich with fossil fuels? It's like they're just trying to fuck this country even more.
That's more of a political agenda, because like their whole if you describe politics in general, like politics is horrible because it's division. Essentially, people, instead of looking at like what is similar about us or what we have in common, you look at what separates our differences, makes us different. Essentially, like our viewpoints.
Right.
And the progressive left. I've been thinking about this. This is also my book. I think a lot about this. The benefit of like doing whatever I want is I have a lot of time to think about things and also observe the world. One of the things I noticed is progressive people, hardcore on the left, which I am generally more towards progressivism in the past than now, but in general, is the idea that everything has been broken and new ideas make everything better. It's about dump the old, it sucks, we'll get new.
Right.
I have this great idea, it could be so much better. Conservatism on the other end is more like everything used to be great and now you're fucking it up and breaking it.
Right. Yeah, I think that's a good simple description, yeah.
And usually somehow connected to Christianity at some point, in some way.
Which is the thing I actually don't like the most about conservatism.
Yeah, but it's also not only here. In this country or this area, it's Christian conservatism. But in other countries, it's also related. Like in India, it's Hindu conservatism.
Yeah, right.
It's related to religion in some forms. So like things used to be great, and now you're making it worse. But the problem is, it's actually much more nuanced than that. It's a little bit of both. Things can get better. things weren't only great before. Like, who are they great for? Because like even in the U.S., like Trump's slogan, "Make America Great Again," MAGA, right? Which people hate.
Right.
Who was it great for? It was great for certain people. It wasn't great for everybody.
Yeah.
But there was a time middle class where America was cooking, and it was great for a lot of people. From 1945 till 1971.
Yeah.
There's a reason why 71 specifically, but that was a cooking time where there was lots of stuff. Middle class grew, manufacturing grew, many jobs. There was a lot of people who
You don't think after World War One, middle class?
There was a period of time, roaring 20s.
Yeah.
Interesting thing happened in World War One. After 1919, when the World War One finished, there was a roaring 20s that happened. It was a massive amount of growth.
This introduction of the stock market.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Massive, great benefits. It happened actually after 1913. 1913, the Federal Reserve Act that was passed in the U.S.
J.P. Morgan.
Well, lots of bankers, they really wanted it. U.S. fought off having a central bank for lots of years. There was actually the first Bank of America, second Bank of America, and it happened from the 1800s. The U.S. needed money. They didn't want a bank. It's all written up. It's very clear.
Yep.
But they said, okay, and they gave it a charter, though, of only 10 years. At that time, a corporation needed to have chartered by the government to exist. So the U.S. First National Bank had a 10-year charter or 20-year charter. The Second National Bank had a 20-year charter. This is how a lot of the wars were fought after, actually.
Right.
But they needed financing. That went through, and then eventually 1913, a bunch of people, there's a famous Jekyll Island kind of scenario where a bunch of bankers got together and decided to put this through. They passed it through the Federal Reserve Act on December 25th, 1913. When there was nobody in Congress, they kind of pushed it through on this like last minute vote when there was nobody in attendance.
Yep.
And since then, everything's been fucked. The idea of it was, we'll protect the bank runs and the banks by having a central bank that protects people from having these high and lows.
Right.
But what happened after that? Roaring 20s, stock market crash, Great Depression, the worst depression ever.
Yeah.
1929, stock market crashes, but it's supposed to be protected. So how did that happen?
Yeah. Yeah.
But the weird thing is, whole world is in a big depression, right? But what happens? Hitler becomes the leader of the communist or the Nationalist Party in 1922.
National Socialist Party.
1932. And then for some reason, a lot of money gets invested in Germany. A lot. Between 1932 and 1939, when the war started.
Well, no, because he stopped paying the reparations.
He did, but like a lot of money was invested. All these corporations in America started like funding. They didn't want to be associated with the Nazi Party. Like Coke stopped selling Coke.
They made Fanta.
Yeah.
Right.
GM stopped selling cars.
They made Volkswagen.
They made Opel. Volkswagen was Germany. Hitler created Volkswagen as the people's car. The Volkswagen Bug was his first car, like the people's car.
He designed it or something?
Yeah, like they designed it, but he commissioned it essentially.
And then he made the Autobahn.
Yeah, as like it was actually meant to get cars, like get equipment across the country. But even then, I'm saying that GM didn't stop selling cars. They just changed the Opel and kept selling cars in during Nazi Germany. IBM sold the machines. There's a famous photo of Mr. Watson, the IBM founder, sitting with Hitler. He gave all the machines that were used to count all the slaves, all the internment, like the Nazi camp, the concentration camp, Jews, and others too, but in the concentration camps. He sold all the machines that they used to count and do the logistics of all the Nazi camp survivors, or not survivors, but like
prisoners.
Casualties, prisoners.
So they just changed, and they started investing. Like the money left America, and it had to go somewhere, and it ended up getting funneled, in my opinion, into Germany at that time because it was growing because of a war economy at that time. The thing is, he wasn't supposed to get any money. At the Treaty of Versailles, there was a stipulation of like they wouldn't have only a certain amount of tanks, only a certain amount of equipment.
Right.
But yet he kept growing his army, and they just kind of looked the other way. At that time.
Yeah.
Well, he took Austria, and he said, "I'm taking."
Later,
yeah.
He's already for years at that point was already like accumulating war.
But they didn't say anything because they were like, well, we were once German, so they speak a lot of German there. So then they gave him that, and then what did he do? He took what is beside Poland?
Czechoslovakia and then Poland.
No, there was a country right beside. He took a place in Poland, and they were like, okay, whatever. And then he invaded Poland right after that. He took like a place up here. I forget what. Not Luxembourg. Maybe it was. No.
It was Czechoslovakia.
Was it?
I think, yeah.
Okay. And then they declared war on him. But he also stole all the gold in Europe.
That's how he financed things. That's why always since the
and that's why I say why the
Roman
U.S.
times.
Why the U.S. has the largest gold supply. what I think is in West and East Germany, they fucking took it all back.
Yeah, well, there was a thing actually during World War II that the U.S. said basically we'll become a storehouse for all your gold, and a lot of people sent their gold to the U.S. as safekeeping because of Nazis.
Right.
So it was like a safe storehouse at that time, until 1971 when things kind of went to shit. Because there's actually a great website like what exactly happened in 1971. What the hell happened in 1971.com?
Okay.
1971, Richard Nixon changes the U.S. economy and says we will no longer be on the gold-backed standard.
Yeah.
We're going to fiat currency. He didn't say fiat currency, but we're going to non-backed currency.
Yeah.
But speculators, this is better for us. But guess who was the one who advised him on that? His Secretary of State.
I don't know, who is it?
And you think? Who do you guess who it was?
What?
I don't know.
Very interesting person that was probably famous for being a big piece of shit.
Let me think here.
His Secretary of State?
Yeah, 1971. Nixon.
Oh, yeah? Okay.
Was it the Watergate?
Before Watergate. Who was the Secretary of State? Anybody?
I don't know.
Famous
know.
name.
I don't know. Yeah, no. We got to tell us. Inform us.
My dad hated this man. Henry Kissinger.
Oh, okay.
I don't know who he is.
You don't know Henry Kissinger?
No.
He has a great quote. The U.S. doesn't have any friends or enemies, only interests.
Yeah. That's very telling. That's awesome.
Yeah.
It's a lot. It's just like, and this is why a lot of people just are, like you said, sheep, blinders on, because this is like a lot of information that just tells a lot of truth. It's so like really telling about, people don't want to think that they live in this kind of world, right? They're good with just, oh, things are good and we are the good guys and this is all good and the government would never fuck us over and these things.
That's what the progressives count on.
Right.
Feed them that and then they believe you. Yeah.
And that's like that. That's like, it's overwhelming, right? It's overwhelming to hear all these different things. And especially if you've never heard of, like if I went to my parents if you told all this to my parents, right? Like they're great people, smart people, but they're in their 60s and they're not on the internet like that and they don't know all these things. And I it's just overwhelming for a lot of people to hear these things and be like, oh, this is all going on all behind my back for the entire history of this country or the United States. And it's a lot for people to handle. And that's why people like to put their blinders on.
Yeah, it's also everything's so nuanced. It's not so, they make it so black and white, especially in the media. It's like good, bad.
Yeah.
Like in the Ukraine thing, it's very complicated and
Right.
long history.
Yeah.
It's not so clear cut. It's a lot of nuance, but it's much easier. I was actually in Egypt when this happened, but like it was COVID, and all of a sudden one day, all of a sudden we must back Ukraine.
Yeah.
It's like they had it ready. Like they were ready to like be like good people back Ukraine.
Yeah.
But it's like it's much more nuanced than that. It's like what their business is going on. The fact that there was a coup that happened earlier in like 2014
yep.
and all the stuff that happened, like there's Victoria Nuland talking about how they spent like 13 billion. There's a video of her in like in 2014. Oliver Stone had a documentary called Ukraine on Fire, and even then he was showing a video of Victoria Nuland, the Undersecretary of State in the U.S., was talking about how we've already spent $13 billion in Ukraine at that point on pre-election 2013 election into their business goings.
Yep.
And the audio of her talking to another guy, I forget his name, and they're talking about who they're going to decide to be the next president of the Ukraine.
Yep.
At that point, and it's like that was like the sloppiest coup and they've had going on. Like the CIA has done. Like, have you seen the options? Seen how many hundreds of countries the CIA has couped?
Yeah.
Over time.
Yeah.
This is like the sloppiest of their coups, and yet even then, the people still just so much like all the COVID people just went to like a good person backs the Ukraine. Putin bad.
Yeah.
He is like, what do they call him? He's like Hitler. Zelensky's like Churchill.
Yeah.
Let's make this narrative.
Yeah.
Give them money.
Yeah.
Like I know Ukrainians, and they're very nationalist, but it's like such an easy. They will go with that because it's such an easy, digestible narrative.
Yep.
But the reality of it is, I've been to Ukraine.
Yep.
It's an interesting place, and it's got a lot more going to it. Russians are interesting people. They're very Orthodox Christian, which is my dad's father's side of the family. My family is like half Catholic, half Orthodox Christian.
Right.
So it's like, it's a lot of like nuance and history there, but nobody can understand that, especially Americans who don't give a shit about what's going on, or even Canadians for that matter, what's going on actually over there.
Yep. And
it's much easier just to feed them this like propaganda. I feel like there's so much propaganda in these days. What I want to end on saying is this: you don't have to live it. What I realized this 20 years ago, essentially, I found it to myself, there's got to be a different way. So I decided to basically say, like I said, I don't want to be a walking wallet.
Yeah.
I'm just going to go out and live different ways. So basically, I've gone around the world to different places and helping people in whatever way and exchanging my help in various capacities
Yep.
for living expenses.
Right.
Basically, my bills are $15 a month.
Yeah.
And I learned at that level of, and when I was 18, when I listened to Tyler Durden saying the things you own end up owning you,
Right.
I realized I don't want to be a debt slave.
Yeah.
There was actually this old pottery of the I think 150 BC. It's a pot, and it shows people working in the fields as debt slaves to pay off their debts. And I was like, I don't want to be that. And I'm gonna decide to, instead of being, even this whole thing, like there's this, I don't know if this is legend or true, but I read that the dollar sign, the S with the two lines in it, is an ancient hieroglyph for a whip.
No, is that right? Okay, that's funny.
That was like in Egypt.
Yeah, yeah.
It's the idea of like enslavement of like the whip. The money is like this whip,
Sure.
whip symbol. Emblem.
Yeah.
And when I heard that a long time ago, I was like, yeah, it is.
Right.
Like, I don't want to live that.
Yeah.
And I decided I'm going to go other places. I'm going to help people. And there's this great websites you can go to. There's either spiritual communities, because along this path I became very spiritual and decided that there's a whole other topic of stories, but like,
Sure.
This is my main goal, my main focus, sharing joy. And I meditate like an hour to 5 hours a day.
Right.
Generally, now it's at an hour, but usually it's been in the 5 hours in the past, to find self and to go out there and help. But there's a lot of places you can go, and anywhere around the world, and offer your services, and people will either pay you or give you money, or you'll find a way. And if you don't want to live this life, there's many opportunities, and you don't have to live this life. Nobody says you have to, unless you feel like you need to be enslaved and part of the system. But like, my big focus in life is, what do I give my energy to? My physical energy, my mental energy, my spiritual energy, whatever that means to you or to me. It's important what I give it to, and that's what I focus on. What I give energy to isn't really important.
Yeah.
And like physical energy, mental energy, sexual energy, spiritual energy. But like, sex cult aside,
Yeah.
I like to give my energy towards things that I think really matter. Even
Yeah.
that is making people feel really
Sure.
good and
Yeah,
loved
it's got positive,
and loved.
positive stuff.
As long as you don't abuse it in
Yeah.
any way, or abuse or like take advantage of people. It's like, what do you want to give more into the world? What do you want to see more in the world? And what I want to see more in the world is people who are free,
Yeah.
and people who live their lives in the way that they want, and what means valuable is valuable to them. And I
Yeah.
don't think this living this way is what people actually want. Like,
Yeah.
No.
if I think of the world and I think of life, I think of animals, or I often think of the sun. Like, the sun just does its thing. It just emanates energy. It doesn't have to go to a job. It doesn't have to do anything. Like, why do we have to go to something to work, to make money, to eventually pay for something so that we can live? I imagine like people were better off like hundreds or thousands of years ago when they just had a farm and just lived.
Yeah. Wake up every day, do your thing, live your life. You're
Mm-hmm.
not chasing some insane
I
whatever,
like
the rat race.
how you went full circle.
Yeah, I was thinking in my head, I'm like, this I just came all the way
This
back
is
to the
good.
beginning, which is this is actually a great way to end this.
Yeah.
But I was thinking in my head, I was going to say that, you fucker. I was going to say that, you just came full circle on the whole thing, right?
Yeah.
We started off kind of with that, and now you kind of came back to it after our long tangent of capitalism, consumerism, iPhones, and Ukraine. It all kind of came back full circle, but we just hit the 2-hour mark right now. I'm surprised that battery has made it. So we're going to go ahead and wrap this up here. Fucking amazing conversation.
Yeah,
I think was
really
really well done, and everyone kind of got to say their piece, which is cool. We would love to have you back again at some point,
man.
because this I don't know if my computer can handle 2 hours, but we're gonna find out. I might put this into 2 parts. We'll see how that goes. But do you want to plug social media or anything? If you want to go ahead and plug it.
Sure. I'm Andre Galactic on all the things. I have a number of YouTube channels. I am also, there's so much other things, but I have like, I'm started kind of like a not-for-profit music label. Music labels screw over the artists massively.
Right.
I'm a musician myself, and I have one channel called Galactic Vibes where I do like soundscapes, meditation
Okay.
soundscapes, but also I'm I'm looking on signing 2 or 3 different artists, some friends of mine that I want to sign to. Basically, all the labels do is there's digital distribution now, but there's no digital source of like marketing or spreading awareness of people.
Sure.
So basically, all a label does is spread awareness of people.
Yeah.
So I'm building that. That's Galactic Vibes. I'm working on a whole Galactic themed brand overall. So I have Galactic Vibes. I have my Andre Galactic, but I also have other channels as well.
I'll get you to write them down and I can throw them on the page, on the description and stuff.
And generally, I'm writing my books, which are coming out eventually, probably within the next year, some point. So I'm gonna self-publish those to answer your question earlier.
Yeah, that was part of the question.
There's many means to do that. There's like either on websites or just making your own website, or also like there's places like bookbaby.com where you can self-publish easily.
Cool.
Or Amazon, of course, Amazon Kindle. Again, if you want to deal with that, I think I might not want to.
Yeah, you're not allowed to. You're not allowed to.
Well, like if you're not there, you don't exist.
No, I know. It's what we said earlier. Necessary evil. Like. You got to participate.
No, fuck that.
Yeah, fuck you, Amazon. You can't buy this book on Amazon.
My favorite story is Amazon. There was a factory and there was a fucking tornado coming at the factory, and people went outside to look and be like, "Oh my god, there's a tornado!" And the managers were like, "Get back inside, get back to work."
Yeah, wild, man.
They have like they're minute by minute.
Yeah, crazy. Yeah, you're cut. You can't keep up. See you later, bud. You hurt yourself. See you later.
Yeah.
It was nice talking to you, dude.
You too, man.
Yeah, it was great. I also obviously check out at Dev Laughs, Devin Laughs,
Raised by Comedy page.
Go check them out. And until next time, guys, I'm Davey on everything, and we'll see you guys next time.
Big cheese, no design on my jacket. Work hard and I'm changing my bracket. Talk tough, we ain't hear that racket. Guys came in, you know how to stack it. Don't take it wrong, but I'ma need my ends though. I got tigers on my chest like Kenzo. Rail came, yeah, he putting that Benz though. Carol's here, man, you know he stay 10 toes. Big dog, man, you know I ain't worried. Bent up, so I'm talking real slurry. Got a blast, bro, I'm always in a hurry. Big Drake, shooting dirty like Curry. Take a yerky, ain't know he stay passed up. You don't catch him late night, do you ass out? No, real, how to put an E-class up. They like, X nigga, how you take the fast ride? 2018, it was me and Big